Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida.
Old World, Florida. Dude, I'm telling you, dude. Dr. Narco Longo came on and dropped the hammer of the god.
America's mother, daughter of Atlantis. God sent the weatherland, the devil sent the Spanish. Florida is Eden, the phantom of youth, Kalia's deception. So Florida is the truth.
Welcome to Florida, baby.
Dr. Narco Longo.
Florida, it is everything. There's too much truth bombs being dropped. I can't digest it all.
Old World, Florida.
Dr. Longo.
Please welcome Dr. Narco Longo.
About to get crazy.
What's up? What's up? How's it going, everyone? How are we doing tonight? Coming to you guys live from Palm Beach County, Florida, Lake Worth Beach. And we're joined by Shem of the Tartarian Truth channel. And we're gonna be truthing some Tartaria tonight. Okay. We got a very exciting premiered last night. This is Old World Order. I was a part of this. This was directed by Sean Hibbler, created by Sean Hibbler, edited, masterminded, and narrated. And he, you know him from, Level With Me, all these good Flat Earth documentaries, COVID, documentaries. He's the heavy hitter. So this is like the first big old world, reluctant to use the word Tartaria, but giants, everything that people have been really talking about the last 5 years, getting summed up, all the architecture, mud floods, things like that. So Antiquitech. And it's done tastefully. Right, there's a lot of garbage in those topics out there on YouTube, but this was done very tastefully. I'm proud to have been a part of it. It was a very good film, and I think Sean Hibbler did a very good job. It was produced by Stu Peters too, so he's a spicy hombre. Okay, he gets he tells the truth a lot. The uncomfortable truth too. So
Stu Peters, never heard of him.
Dang, dude, why you gotta do him like that?
I'm looking him up right now. Nice. I like what I'm reading.
Stupid. Show what you're reading. Share your screen.
Should I? All right.
Yeah,
Let it.
so people can know. For people who aren't familiar, he produced Stu Peters. He produced Old World Florida. Sorry, Old World Order. Sorry, they're so similar. Old World Order. It's like
Hopefully
the
it's the
antithesis
same dude.
to the New World Order.
I brought it up though. So wait, where I missed this premiere. I didn't see it on YouTube or anything. If it came out last night after the event, it came out like literally a couple hours ago or something when you told me about it.
Yeah, Rumble premiere. Can you zoom in on that?
I don't know. Let's find
Please.
out. Yes.
Nice.
Stuart Peters, born April 1st, 1980.
Oh, he's a total Aries. Total Aries.
American alt-right internet personality, white nationalist, Holocaust denier. So
Oh, man.
basically, type of guy you definitely feel comfortable letting babysit your kids, right?
Well, he produced a good movie. So we're going to be live reacting. That's all this is. We're just reacting, not endorsing or anything. You know,
No,
I
I'm
didn't.
saying I would prefer him to babysit my children.
Right. Oh, hell yeah. I contributed to this, but I didn't ultimately piece this together. This was Sean Hibbler and a lot of other contributors too. Michelle Gibson is probably, me and Michelle Gibson are, might have the most screen time. And then Martin Liedtke as well. You've got Egan, Max Egan, I think, right? And a couple other guys. You'll see here, right? So we got it queued up. We're gonna watch together. We're gonna do a live watch party. This is exciting. It's very dramatic in a good way. Like the soundtrack's really good. Nice orchestral music. And
Cool production. Oh yeah, this will be my first time seeing it. So blind reaction. Let's do it.
Shall yeah. Jimmy Stingray might be popping in later too. So
Greg, no research on the other name.
nice. All right, tell me if you can hear this. Boom. Volume's good.
Yep.
Oh my God, Shem. Yeah, Shem smoked too much weed.
Glorious architecture. Magnificent structures that allegedly have no connection, yet very similar designs. This style of architecture, riddled with elegance and purpose, can be found in your neighborhood or in the middle of nowhere.
You guys want it
When
louder?
you walk in, you are
Show of hands if you want
overwhelmed
it.
by
Video
a
louder.
feeling of serenity,
Okay.
a feeling that modern day architecture does not provide. The
Is that good?
concept of a timeline that once existed, where structures were created with a completely different purpose. Yet, when we take a look back at who they told us built these structures, considering the timeline and the lack of technology, the story begins to crumble. And that story was taught to us all during a time when we were too young to question it. But when you shine an unbiased light upon the history books, you'll quickly uncover the lies of his story. But even before Rockefeller and his goons started the Board
More?
of Education, they already had our ancestors.
Talk a little bit more real quick so
Anyone
I can tell the difference.
question their narrative.
Yeah.
will soon find
How's-
themselves
how does our
unwilling
voice
resident
sound in
of the
relation
original
to the
indoctrination
video?
camps? And where did they?
I'd say
Come
go up a
from.
little bit more, I guess.
Where did we all come from?
Put the
If
video up a
knowledge
little
is
bit more.
Truly power, then maintaining
God.
such power must rely on the absence of
It's gonna be
knowledge.
so fucking
Are you
old.
aware that every major city in America experienced a great fire? Candle fires that turned stone to dust, leaving behind a crime scene that resembles a war zone. Let's take a giant
That's good,
step
right?
back. Perform
me,
our
yeah.
own investigations. Question the history that was written by these victors. With a growing
Classic.
nationwide lack of trust for our leaders, it's time to discover the extent of the deceit and where the lie truly
Drop
began.
voice audio.
What's being kept from us is huge. And you're talking earlier about the architecture. I really like to encourage people to do their research in their own communities because you really do not have to go far to start chipping away at what they've told us and ask yourself a question: is this even possible? Is it possible that X building was built in the 1890s? And they're giving us timelines of like a year. It was built in a year. They want us to believe we didn't have the technology, that we were low tech, and yet we're building all of these amazing structures. this disparity
Okay,
between what
let
the
us-
narrative says
Let
and
us know how
what's
we
actually
sound now.
there.
You
guys.
have
Coming
places,
through. Oh,
cities in
who's that?
America that look as though they were constructed in medieval Europe when nothing was here and people showed up and just got started building, from what we're told. One would assume that they
Yeah,
would
we filmed this at a
build
park
with the
in Miami. So here, we'll pause right there. Let us know how the audio is sounding. If it's okay. You know, we should be a little bit louder than the video, but
The
audio is good.
sugar rush bros.
Okay. Looks like we're sounding okay for right now.
Yeah. Do we see some Cabbage Patch Kids in there? I think we did.
A little bit. It's mentioned
means that were
briefly.
available to them. Here, and you have places, cities in America that look as though they were constructed in medieval Europe when nothing was here and people showed up and just got started building, from what we're told. One would
Well, yeah.
assume that they would
Of course they did.
build with the means that were available to them. Wood, nails if they were lucky. What we get is this narrative that people were showing up and really making do with what they had.
What we learn about in school is there was nothing here. This land was free for the taking. The only inhabitants were wild Indians, and we built everything here. Everything you see in this country, in North America, because we're talking about Canada too, was built by us. After we got here, nothing here. They had to change the narrative. They had to destroy the evidence. They had to come up with an explanation for who built this, why they built it, when they built it. And they had to do that for a lot of buildings.
We are told that during the 1800s, the consensus of North America was low, extremely low, too low to justify the infrastructure within the timelines they've provided, too low to have the experience or knowledge on crafting these glorious buildings.
They're
That's-
the most
that's pretty much
exquisite
true.
buildings I've ever seen. And there was only a population of a few thousand people at that time.
I'm not super familiar with this.
And then
stuff,
I'm looking
but-
and there's mud roads and wooden sidewalks. And then I'm looking at this building that is just, it could be out of Paris or Prague.
You
It's
have to
not
ask the
computed.
question, who are the
And
citizens?
so I'm realizing there again, there
Sorry, Shem?
You have to ask the question in that situation, though, who are they actually including in the census? Who is considered a legal citizen of the country at that time period? Just because it says there's 1,000 people, that could just be 1,000 of a specific group.
Right.
So,
Right.
and
It's not including natives, probably.
definitely not, or other people who just aren't a part. Because a lot of the colonies in America were basically companies set up. They had special trade agreements to do what they were doing via charters from kings. So not everyone in is included in those companies. Not everyone's a part of those charters. But we can continue.
Right. Good observation. This guy
There's
looks
a
like
whole
Alexander
bunch
Skarsgård,
of stories that have to be dug into,
numbers guy.
rethought, reconsidered, and in some cases completely discarded.
We no longer build like that. How does that happen in a realistic timeline? Wouldn't you be progressing year after year to have incredible buildings? Today, we would be building massive pyramids, massive courthouses, courthouses that last forever. Instead, we have the complete opposite. And they're very cheap. The tools have upgraded, supposedly.
That's what I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure
our-
the documentary stressed was it's not, hey, this one empire we haven't found out about. What was their name? What did what did they look like? Where did they live? It's way, way more about us losing the will to build beautifully, the will to build, great buildings inspired by God, things that would last forever. Those impulses have kind of been taken away. So
Why do you
I'm
think
glad
that is?
Hmm?
Why do you think that is? Do you have any opinions or theories about that?
well, you never want to take too much of a victim stance, but if it's 50-50 people just giving in to the Industrial Revolution and the cheapening of products and the cheapening of food, and not necessarily like a dollar amount, but the devaluation. Then the other half would be, of course, they were pushing brutalism. They made sure that all the government buildings were brutalist, anti-nationalist after World War II and World War I in some countries. So the brutalism, the modern art getting pushed by certain people also did it.
Well, you have to think about what
the emphasis
was
on college also eroded like individuality and the love of beauty.
Yeah, no doubt. You have to also think about what was the ornamentation on these buildings. A lot of the time, religious motives or symbol. Well, I guess they're all religious, but they're symbols for basically the higher life, like kind of the concepts we were talking about in our last chat about the Old Testament. They're kind of like a document written in stone showing the mysteries to the types of concepts that we were describing. So that's not available. Another thing is you have to think about what is a permanent house. What happens when you have a permanent house? You can pass it down from generation to generation and actually have some stability in your family line. So the way that they're designing these buildings nowadays, they're intended to fail. That way they can make money in 30, 40 years down the line with either repairs or, deconstruction and then building a new construction. They're designed to fail for the economy.
Right. So let's resume.
Our construction.
We can
has
talk
gotten
over it
worse.
too. It's just hard for me to hear.
It's completely backwards.
There's evidence of a worldwide culture that existed in the not too distant past, and the evidence is everywhere. It's an interesting thing because, like, I've spent a lot of my life looking into ancient history and traveling around the world searching into the past. And it isn't until recently that I realized that it's actually, I don't have to travel to Egypt or anywhere. It's all right there in Sydney and in London and in San Francisco, and it's all around the world.
San Francisco.
And once you see it, you can't unsee it. All you got to do is look at the civilization you're living in with the right type of eyes. And you're sort of looking around your city and you're going, well, hang on, what's this building doing here? And why is there a building just like that in the Philippines? Why is there one in Japan? Apparently Japan's borders were closed, weren't they? Why are we finding what we're told is Greco-Roman style architecture in every country on earth? Was it really Greco-Roman style, or is it evidence of a culture that existed, a worldwide culture that existed right around the world in the not too distant past?
If I took a picture of this building behind me and asked any of these people, where do they think this building is in the world? I guarantee you most of them would say Rome or Europe somewhere. But no, it's right here in San Francisco. We have buildings like this all over the country, and they want us to believe that they were built in the early 1900s or the late 1800s with horse and buggy. And there's just no way that's true. These buildings were built by the prior civilization.
Is this my lunch break?
Master builders, the old world order.
This is the architecture I'm talking about. You'll find this anywhere in New Zealand, Australia, Hong Kong, North America, South America, all over Europe. It doesn't matter where you are. This architecture is replicated. The weird thing is, they akin it to being all built around the 1870s to 1900 mark. So all of the world just shit out of nowhere at the same time. There was nothing before it. Does it make any sense?
I don't think antiquity is a long time ago.
I'll be honest.
Civilization went just before us. The Edwardians are supposed to be around the time of the First World War.
Just to be honest.
Within grandparents' living memory,
kind of loopy
we know nothing about. It's the control mechanism that covers it up with the education system. They got the news, they got the narrative,
Senior
they got,
right there.
The mainstream to tell you how things are, but the reality is completely different. History goes to the victors. Okay, somebody invaded this place and took over.
And the AI art
through jealousy,
could have done
using
without
trade routes, using the sea. And they took over this place. They covered all of this fine architecture with their iconography. So there's literally been a cover-up of history more than one way.
If you look at Capitol buildings all over the earth, they look the same.
Marty Brashears.
They do. They've got
Those
columns, they've got
Brashears,
domes.
guys.
It was not random. And every story we're told in our historical narrative about how a place got started was some guy was the first settler there, bought some land, subdivided it, sold it, and pretty soon you have a city. But the whole narrative is based, especially in North America, that there wasn't anything there. And we built it all.
You could look at it, the whole building was a work of art. So there was obviously some pride that went behind that. It wasn't just about making money and throwing shit up as fast as you could.
Who knows if that's my lunch break?
It was
guys.
about building with a purpose, and that there was symbolism behind these things.
They built them to last. They built them with a certain level of artistry and attention to detail and customization.
I wasn't super familiar.
You see,
with
now
this
you'll
guy
go through
either.
a neighborhood and every home looks the same. This neighborhood, perfect example. But everything had its own identity, and it was steeped in customization and ornate attention to detail.
We don't get that now.
You don't get that now.
Even when you look at the beauty of the buildings from that Tartarian
pause
area,
it?
people were actually paying for labor.
Did anyone at the entire point of this documentary consider looking at the carvings on the buildings and maybe trying to like figure out what they're saying or making some associations between them? Because you could answer this hour-and-a-half documentary in 15 minutes if you would just do that. Like it's just people just talking.
Wow.
Talking
Well,
about
Shem, there
nothing,
you have a
basically.
great idea for a video.
It's just ridiculous. Like,
Thumbs it up. Let's see it.
well, let's continue. If I see anything, I'll point it out to you.
Shem's just a little sad that he didn't get invited.
No.
Cap. Shem be capping.
Definitely not.
Shem be capping live on Old World Florida. Yeah.
I mean, but seriously though, do any of them talk about it? Because they're mentioning.
What do you mean by carvings? Like hieroglyphics?
Like the ornaments on the ornamentation that everyone's talking about in the buildings. Does anyone go into any detail about what they are, or is it just I saw ornaments on a building and that's just where it ends?
Let's keep watching.
And you have to get carpenters in there. No, you'd never build buildings like that if you're working by an hourly rate. You'd just be getting it functional. People used to build that stuff because they love to build, because beauty is actually a function. Beauty is actually a function of a creation. When you're living in a world of beauty, your soul expands. It's expansive. You can create. You can become all that you can be. And if you can become all that you can be, you sure as hell don't need rulers. So that's why they don't want you to know about any of this sort of stuff. Oh no, we're at the pinnacle of our civilization now. This is the best it gets. The best we've ever done. Look at the quality of these walls. Hey, fuck that Gothic shit. Look at this. You know? I mean, yeah.
When I was like 8 years old, I started researching the pyramids and stuff because no one knew how they were built, you know? So I started looking into ancient history. And as I said, I'd spend most of my life traveling around the world looking at all these ancient sites. And then suddenly
me,
you see this civilization that's right there under your nose. It's been there the whole time in all of our Western cities. They covered everything up. It wasn't just inserting the Dark Ages. They changed everything. So when we start even trying to piece it together through the history that they've given us, how do we know any of these places are even the names that we're told they are? How do we know any of these things? How do we know any of the history is true? Because it's not they just put it all together and just shuffle the deck and throw it out to a bunch of countries and name them whatever they want. So it's become extraordinarily difficult to try to trace it through any mainstream history records. All we've got to really go on is the architecture itself. It wasn't thousands of years ago. It was just hundreds of years ago. Even if you go down to South America and look at some of the temples down there, the edges on them, the beveling on them, this is only a few hundred years old. This is not old ancient structures. These are new walls. I've gone there and looked at them myself. And nothing is what they tell us. You know, everything is a lie. It's just how big the lie is. You know, and the bigger the lie is, the easier it is for people to believe it.
There's a lot of architecture in the world today on every continent of buildings that are much, much larger than you would think people of our height would build. And so I gave the example of the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. as being one of those buildings. The Basilica, the National Shrine at Catholic University in Washington is another example. A huge, huge building.
Look at the Texas state capitol. It's incredible. You've got these pillars around the whole area. It's kind of the same thing as the Vatican.
I do wonder about Iolani Palace. How old is it? And one thing to look at is it took them 2 years, from 1880 to 1882. How did they build that beautiful, beautiful building? Was it building here longer? Was it here before Captain Cook? There's no construction pictures and there's none of that stuff. So no power tools, horse and buggy. How is that even possible?
When you have St. John's Cathedral in New York City, that's not a style of cathedral.
Why does everyone
That's
have
the
against
real
horse and
McCoy.
buggy?
Could you imagine that
Horse
being
and
built
buggy.
today? I think that everybody would go crazy.
They have no legitimacy whatsoever, except to trick us and convince us that they do. And that's how they've managed to get away with this. So they could insert themselves in and set themselves up as overlords.
Stone building is not just something you can pick up and teach a convict in a matter of weeks, like we're told about Americas and Australia. Truly, that's how we're told these countries were built.
Just extremely sophisticated and technical engineering.
That's St.
involved.
Augustine.
And
That's old world Florida material right
there's
there.
so many questions that come to mind.
Show
How'd
ya.
they do it? If they were our size, how could they even accomplish this with the technology we were told we had at the time?
That's a crazy picture. Oof.
Yeah, beautiful.
Fucking making videos about
You'll
the whole
find many
planet.
banks, post offices, government centers, especially 100 years ago, were facilitated in these large, glorious stone structures. So, number one, the rulers wanted the stronger, more durable, more imposing structures for themselves. That sends a message to the people you're ruling over. We're going to play a little game here with two alternatives, right? And you or I, whoever the person deciding between these two is, I'd
do
like
that.
for you to pretend you're a world leader. You're not a good one. You're evil and you'd like to rule the people underneath your thumb. Or you're looking to maintain control over people. Bear with me and envision these two alternatives. In the first, we have the opinion, the theory, the teachings, the paradigm that man
We're not
is nothing but
ridiculing
a
it. We're having
carnivorous
a good
monkey
time.
in outer space, floating on a rock for no reason, in the middle of
These are
nowhere by
sensitive.
accident. And this all got kicked off 43 bajillion years ago on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock p.m. And they can determine this with their color star charts and then, moon dust and things like that. And going on to a long, vast existence of nothing, just surviving by instinct, on par with an animal. Justification for any morals, ethics, no real pursuit of true happiness, no pursuit of harmony and understanding here on the earth. And this is all what we're living today. There's no spiritual accountability. There's no understanding of beauty. Ooh. Well, on the other alternative, garbage. On this side, we have a purposeful creation, a purposeful design to not only the human being, but the entire earth, the laws of nature. No theories, only laws ingrained into existence, woven into the fabric of reality by the designer, the creator, not in a linear sense, not, back then, this many years ago or that. It doesn't work that way. This is the fabric of what we live in. There is a value placed on beauty. Why? Because God has a beautiful
Yo, I actually
creation.
played the piano.
In
for this
order
part,
to
guys.
return the favor.
Hell yeah.
He hit you with the
Man
John
finds
Levi.
that
Yo,
yoke
get me in the
to
stew.
create Beautiful.
He hit you with the John Levi song
In
for
recent
this.
times, this has been robbed from us. But nonetheless, it's in the soul of every human being to not only value beauty, to seek it out, to place a high, high emphasis on it. This is how the ancients maintained their ways of life. Geometric, proportional laws of beauty.
I think he trolled you, man.
There's never been anything like it in the whole world.
It's right in our own hometown. Grandpa, they'll never tear it down, will they?
There was no fat people ashamed back then.
They didn't tear all
True
of them
golden
down,
age.
not that they put them up in the first place. The World's Fairs showcase many of our ancient structures in their grandest form. Yet, we are sold the story that these are alleged temporary buildings, all being built in record-breaking time for the purpose of a worldly gathering, a gathering to showcase new technology, or perhaps just taking credit for the old. With so many lights on display, one would only assume that power plants and electrical resources such as wiring and even electricians were widely available. However, during this time period, that wasn't the case at all. Therefore, how are these vast areas in the late 1800s able to light the evening sky, like a modern-day theme park? Or was there a different method for harvesting energy? Now ask yourself, what part of these magnificent buildings look temporary? What part of these buildings look rushed? And most importantly, what part of these buildings look new? Or you can just believe these guys.
With these World's Fairs, it was all brand new. This is what they tell us. It was meant to be temporary. So they used plaster of Paris and wood and all these other structures. And if you look at the pictures, that's not what you see. You see these massive masonry structures that look like what you see in Europe. They have these places like Chicago, Omaha, Portland, Seattle, Guatemala. They had them in Tasmania,
Georgia, Louisiana, Ohio, Canada.
Each one of these fairs, each one was built in 2 years or less. Each one was magically populated by millions of people that came from all over the realm to participate in this event.
They started with the Crystal Palace exposition in 1851. So what they tell us in 9 months, from the moment they conceived of it to when it was built, it was 9 months of getting it all together in this gigantic plate glass structure with fountains and trains and all the bells and whistles. Now, supposedly they moved that entire structure to a different location in London in 1854, and that in the 1930s, that burned down. So, show pictures of this Crystal Palace structure, which is massive, and all the things that are there. We have to move that, no problem. Oops, it burned down, which is typically what happened to a lot of these World's Fair structures.
Yep.
If you can erase it from history, people don't see it as a potential future. And I think that in itself is, for me, the moral of hiding history, about hiding the old world. It just doesn't make logical sense to me to build something so grand and then just destroy it.
Really, those was an excuse to take existing infrastructure, build some little bullshit around it, and then when you're finished with your so-called fair, it gives you an excuse to tear everything down and nobody questions you.
They might have built a couple of these buildings, and you can actually tell the buildings that they built because they look like dog shit. Now, we have buildings that can hold 10,000 people, huge, giant buildings that look like they were made for a larger race of people. They say they built it in 2 years, 600 acres, which is, I think, something like 27 million square feet. It's absolutely insane, the amount of architecture they say they built in 2 years.
As an architect and somebody who's been building my entire life, designing houses and buildings for 20 years or so, the time frames that they allow for just the planning, the idea that that could just be planned out in 2 years begs credulity.
They had these ornate buildings with all kind of moving sidewalks and crazy technology. They had ill things with so many lights, electricity, when electricity was supposed to be a new thing and all of that. They had shit that was like something out of a dream, bro.
Well, this is the exposition that was fully electrified. Some of these examples, they're electrified before electric was a thing. The first electrified city was supposed to be Buffalo. First electrified building was supposed to be JP Morgan's in New York, all attributed to Edison. But these things, some of them 1890s, fully electric, and it would have been free energy. They didn't have massive plants to generate electricity.
The first one in America was in 1876,
Wait a
and that
second.
was the Centennial World's Fair in Philadelphia.
We're gonna pause up. What's up?
I don't know how often you're wanting to stop and do commentary and stuff, but there's so much we could be saying about all of this stuff.
You talk over. Yeah.
There's
Jump in whenever.
there are like entire buildings at these fairs that have engines inside of them to run them. Like it's documented and there's photos and everything. So I know that this is more of like an introductory, it seems like, video for people who maybe never heard of all this stuff before, so you can't be too hard on it. But a lot of these questions do have some sort of explanation, and the impression I'm getting from it so far is that none of these people have taken the time to look into anything that they're talking about. I mean,
I wouldn't say that.
you're making videos for 5 years and you've never even considered to, like on World's Fairs, for example, you never even considered to look into the history of plaster of Paris, for example, and like
I'm
figure
sure
out
they
exactly.
have. They're not wrestling with one single building. That's a strong point of the film, is it's not resting the case on one certain building. You know, they're trying to paint the picture, big picture.
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I'm saying too. But based on watching some of their channels as well, they've never really brought it up either. That's why some of the views are going down on these channels, because Bushwhacking History in Buffalo sent a super chat earlier and said it perfect. Good documentary, something like that. I don't know what it said. It was like documentary is pretty good, but more of the same or something like that. And that's pretty much what I'm saying here, is that it's been stagnant for 5 years of saying the same stuff, just looking at buildings and saying, oh, we couldn't have done this. Kind of like what you're saying about John Levi last time, but never going the extra step to dissect the actual narrative that they give or find facts that could explain what's taking place.
Well, we're only like a fifth of the way through here, though there's plenty more. It's just broaching these topics. You're too needy. Oh my god! Can you imagine we'll go walking into a fucking movie theater with Shem? Jesus.
That wouldn't happen. Would not happen.
Jesus, fucking Debbie Downer over here. His channel's Tartarian Truth. All he does is whatever.
Well, you have to think. I mean, I just don't understand why people aren't thinking about it. Like, what is the point of the World's Fair? What locations are these World's Fairs taking place in? What are those cities known for?
You're saying that what they're making claims they can't substantiate?
No, I'm just trying to figure out why they're not looking into it more, as opposed to just being stagnant.
Dude, I don't speak for any of these people, but
I know, but
I look into it more. I look into it more. Michelle Gibson, say what you want about her, she looks into it a hell of a lot. Okay, she does her homework on a lot of stuff. Just because you're saying they're not trying to like learn everything that all the mainstream academics say about these buildings doesn't mean that they should just stop in their tracks and, you know, they have to learn everything that the academics are saying.
You don't have to, but if you're going to present yourself as an authority on something and ask people
No
for
one's
money,
presenting themselves as authority. That's you. That's your imagination. That's your inferiority complex that you carry into every single fucking conversation. Oh my god.
So an inferiority. So wait. Someone who feels like they're an they have superiority complex is also asserting themselves as an authority. That doesn't really make sense.
No, I'm saying you have an inferiority complex. Who agrees? Show of oranges in the chat if Shem has an inferiority complex.
I'm just saying, like, there could be. I mean, whatever.
No one said that. Nobody in this movie said, "I'm the authority on this thing."
They definitely present themselves as that on a regular basis on their channels.
Well, listen, all I'm going to bat for is what's in the movie. Everything in the movie is what I'm comfortable with. Everything in the movie is what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for everything else on these people's channels. I think they did a good job.
I agree, it's an introductory thing, but what I'm more saying is like, yeah, you guys can do whatever you want, but eventually the views are going to stop coming if people are just going to be repeating the same stuff over and over again.
Who cares if
and never
views?
looking in.
Who cares if views stop coming? Tartaria views are probably disappeared a long time ago. It's you know, if these people are like have nothing to talk about, whatever. I have plenty to talk about.
There's so much more to it, though. There's so much more to it. Like, we could talk about the size of the buildings, why they're built beautifully, the height of the buildings, what historical documents talk about the height of buildings being to a specific purpose for a specific reason, with the shape of the city, the way it's laid out, stuff like that. That people just
Okay,
aren't.
don't Shem, don't be too bristly. Okay, like, you know, we're here to watch this and you can critique it, but come on, bro. What fucking movement are you a part of? Like, you sound like Destiny some of the time.
What the Truther movement was originally supposed to be.
Okay, but you don't have to endlessly try to like humble and humiliate people and say, like, you know,
I don't
what's
think
the
that's what
goal
I'm
here?
doing. I think I'm doing the correct thing here by trying to say we should look into things more.
Whatever.
For some reason,
this is looking into things more.
it seems to be.
No,
it
you're
seems-
just never satisfied. You're so hard to satisfy. You demand so much of these truthers. You want them to be like your mommy, daddy, and the best researcher you've ever heard, and your best friend, and for them to never want money or get paid for what they do and all this shit. Whatever. I love that about you, but fucking, can we
Bro.
just watch the movie for a second?
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I
Okay,
just-
a lot of these guys are a little bit like, you know, would I collaborate with them on my channel? No, but I signed up for the movie. I had somewhat of a say, you know, into like what made it till the final cut, and nothing that made it to the final cut, I was against. So you're, you know, you might be more worried about where these rabbit holes lead and how they're not, you know, 1,000,000%.
I'm more concerned about the fact that a majority of people in the community seem to be more focused on becoming celebrities as opposed to actually doing research. That's what I'm concerned about. So for some reason, me asking questions about the topic of the video in the truther community is seen as being against it or trolling or something, when in
Oh my
reality,
God.
that's what the truther community is supposed to be to begin with. You're supposed to ask questions. That's the reason we left
This
the
is the
mainstream.
truther community. We're asking questions.
Well,
You
we
say
can
that
continue.
as
We can continue
my
though.
God.
I'm just saying. It's hilarious to me.
Jesus. When is Jem ever happy? When is he ever satisfied? Come on, dude. Like, can you name one? Who's your truther that just gets it right?
I can't say because I don't think anyone's right about anything. I just look at all sources.
Okay, that's fine. But, you know, are you going to scrutinize everyone no matter what? Always, like, these people might have their own.
I gave them
faults.
compliments as well. Like I don't understand how I'm scrutinizing them. So maybe that's the issue. I'm
Scrutiny's
not.
okay. I'm just saying, like,
Just to be clear,
you know, they're
it's not a
saying,
personal attack.
let's go back to the engines. You say, like, oh, well, there's evidence of engines in these buildings. Well, I specified we're not talking about any certain building, right? They're talking about the potential. And, you know, come on, Shem. Come on. Can you meet us halfway? These fucking
I can meet you more
World's
than halfway.
Fairs, these World's Fairs were lit out of nowhere. That was unusual. I haven't been convinced that they just, oh, yep, slap these things together. All the bulbs were, I've seen enough. I've seen enough of the posts with no wires, light bulbs that would have had to have been lit from, you know, inside a lamp with a underground cable. And, you know, some of the lighting doesn't make sense around these old world fairs. So just because you say, oh, well, this one has an engine in it, doesn't mean we need to take that part out of the movie.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But being asked to do commentary on a video, I'm gonna give commentary on the video. Like,
Yeah,
it's not that,
I
it's not that
asked you to.
serious. I believe the World's Fair probably more than a lot of people do. Like, I look into it all the time. I'm not disagreeing with it. That's why I said at the beginning, this is like an introductory type thing for people who've never heard of this stuff. So that's why I started with that. So hopefully this wouldn't happen. But like, there's no getting around these types of disagreements for whatever reason with anyone. So it's not even a big deal. Let's just continue.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Can you just? None of these people claim to be high authorities in the movie or on their YouTube channels. I would even wager all these people say, like, you know, to a fault, that these people usually say things like, don't trust me, do your own research, you know. Those people say that shit more than I do. All right, Origin.
The one in 1901 in Buffalo was a major one. The 1904 in St. Louis was Louisiana Purchase.
No, Michelle Gibson,
And the
be
Lewiston
quiet.
part
Shem
was
had it.
in Portland the
Shem's got
following
it figured out. They were actually
If you
telling the
define
truth
the
all
word
the time.
exposition,
Shem
it's
read the
telling a
Wikipedia.
story. It's setting the stage, the narration. So these World's Fairs were used as, this is the narrative that we want people to believe and go home with.
The World Fairs served to get people with the new program. They said, trains, incubator babies, this is the new norm. Fast forwarding people into the modern industrial age. Everyone's wearing the same beaver hats. Everyone's wearing the same three-piece suit. You know, it seemed like individuality had ceased to exist. The World's Fairs served the purpose of indoctrinating.
The World Columbian Exposition was one of the most superb. In Chicago, Illinois, formerly known as Chilaga, had some of the most beautiful stone masonry in the world. The area was nicknamed the White City, as each building was strategically painted bright white in an attempt to hide the inevitable aging of the structural entity. The mainstream narrative would lead you to believe that these megastructures were designed by the most educated and experienced.
What do you think, Shem? How did these buildings come to be?
Well, there's a document that goes alongside of this World's Fair exposition that details every single statue in detail and every single building and how it was built. In that book, they say at the beginning that the area of Jackson Park was on the land that was a few years, quote, few years before that was under the rule of a single Indian monarch. So you can do with that information what you want. So yes, it's very possible that this single Indian monarch was in control of a city, which can be traced back to the French colonizers of New France that could have been in that location where the fair was, and these buildings could have easily been there beforehand.
Okay.
But you're not going to hear that on the other channels because they're too busy asking
Oh
for
my God.
donations.
Here we go.
I got to spice it up. You know how it goes.
I knew there was a Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot about the Chicago stuff that doesn't make sense.
Okay, great. So you're not just 100% against the fact that this was.
If anything, I'm 100% in favor that they're lying. Which is like the most insane thing about this to me is that people can get that wrong about me. It just the mental gymnastics that you have to do to think that I'm against this is just astounding.
Right. Well, Shem doesn't have to beg for donations because he gets his direct deposited straight from Mossad for disrupting and dividing. He's the most divisive.
If I don't do enough, then I don't get my contract renewed. It kind of sucks.
It does. All right.
Architects, right?
The architect, you didn't have any formal training?
What on earth would give you that idea?
Isn't that what the website said, right?
Your website.
Your website said that the architect of this building has no formal training.
That's,
Here.
I find that implausible.
This is your website.
We all do.
Wait,
That's my problem.
did she
I'm not
forget
sure
what
if
was
there
on
were
her
even any
website?
schools of architecture back then.
Is that what
They
happened?
know how to do this stuff. That's what we're asking.
This is not built for dinosaurs, the Field Museum. It was built for something else. It's not to show off the fake dinosaur bones. It was for something else. When you walk inside, you can see the doors are much bigger than the size we are.
No need to
It's
look into
nothing
that.
like we built today.
The Museum of Science and Industry, which was the arts building, the fine arts building. And they make the argument that that was a temporary building like all the others. And the public liked it so much that they rallied to save it. So what they did is they went and rebuilt it out of granite and marble and copper and all the permanent materials that we see now. I think these are children's stories that they give us. I don't understand at all how serious-minded people can accept the story that says this building was built exactly as we see it now, but with temporary materials. And then because
Not
we liked it,
temporary.
it got rebuilt out of granite and marble and copper and glass. To me, that defies explanation and is much more of a fanciful tale than the idea that the building was already there and was repurposed for a fair.
This one connects to the Shedd Aquarium, I guarantee it. And it connects to a lot more buildings around this area. And it's not just here, it's in every single city in the world.
You know, we on top of water.
We're on water.
We on water. So we on top of water. You go in the basement, you will hit the water, hit the wall.
Hit that
And then
wall.
sometimes when it rains,
When it
because the
rains.
sewer be flooded sometimes, the water
Be
come in the
flooded.
basement, flood the whole basement.
Oh my God. Thoughts on
That's exactly what we're talking about.
Before we leave it, press him on that. What do you got on that?
Okay, so there's massive tunnel systems throughout all of these buildings
Yeah.
everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So you're telling us right now that there's tunnels. Basically, there's a basement here. This building is much bigger than we can see on the
Yeah,
ground surface.
it's a basement. It's a basement here. When the war, you hit when you go in the basement, we do rounds. What we call our rounds called the ground level, and then we got upper level. So we go downstairs to certain hallways. You will hear water hitting the walls.
Wow. You have seen the tunnel systems underneath these buildings?
According to the information gathered from my grandfather, who got here in Chicago in 1969, well, before that, as far as for what we have here from museum we're in now, from the Field Museum to the Shedd Aquarium to Soldier Field, there are pathways underneath that are all connected.
It's like if you go to McCormick Place, if you go, they got the little tunnels over there too, because they be flooding over there too.
They be flooding.
Yeah,
It's connected, you think?
yeah, yeah. So this whole campus, the whole campus is connected, and we guess tunnels. I was told there's tunnels. You know what I'm saying? It's like the tunnels along the lake that you can go down in, and then it leads you into like a little path. But you know, I heard that from somebody that he was working for 43 years.
Really?
Been here for 43 years. He been here for 43 years. He retired, I want to say like last week sometime.
Have you ever been in them?
No, sir. They won't allow access to the public.
Okay.
And then they only allow access to very few of their actual workers here.
So you think that dirt in that picture downstairs, you think the dirt is actually there and we put it there to cover up this building to make it look like it's not as big as it really is?
That's a good one. That's
Man,
good.
that's some
I
hard
feel like
math
he did
right
though.
there.
I feel like he made the picture to fake like. I feel like the building was there already.
What do you tell your child when you're coming to a new location and they're asking you questions and you have no answers? You will start to create so that way you have a way to answer those questions, or your child will grow up with no answers and forever seeking. So
Now we're here to give answers.
there you go.
When they say that these buildings were temporary, what they're basically suggesting is that it's a full-scale model. That is going to be occupied by thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that are coming in and out of these fairs, where they're going to hold together through brutal winters, through hurricanes, through potential earthquakes, with hundreds and
Hurricanes.
thousands of people occupying these spaces. The liability on that alone would have shut the whole endeavor down from the beginning. It wouldn't have been permitted. It's not the kind of thing that's permissible when you're talking about the building trades, when you're talking about a public facility where you're going to be bringing so many people.
Now, this takes a huge infrastructure and it takes a huge amount of people to do something like this. When you see these ridiculous construction photos where it's like popsicle sticks, clear manipulation.
All right, so right here you can see they just put the
This video does a
scaffolding
good job.
up, just like they've done it.
Good job of exposing photo manipulation. Really good job. So if that's a place where you're hung up, this video is very convincing.
In the past, in the original pictures of the construction. Yeah, and they're doing it right now. How hard would it be to just make it black and white and then make it look like they're doing some construction right now? NASA's not the only company to fake a photo, guys.
With a lot of these old, glorious
That's my
buildings,
lunch break. Okay, that's my lunch break.
regardless of where they are, you'll find supposed, alleged construction photos. Now, many of these will show simply scaffolding around an already constructed building. If you take an old cathedral and put scaffolding around it, and you're the first person ever to have that cathedral photographed, well, you are ripe to make a case for yourself that you may have built that to begin with, whereas you might have just been renovating that cathedral, repainting it, fixing it, old primitive photo manipulation techniques.
Wooden sidewalks and mud roads, you have to be able to bring all the stone and brick and glass and copper and all the component parts. You have to be able to bring that to the site. And so just the roads alone, like you can scratch and sniff any aspect of this and the story starts to crumble. But if you're printing these in books or you're presenting them like on maybe a TV documentary, let's say, and it's just an image that's going to come and go, and 99.9% percent of people looking at them are not even going to scratch their head. They're going to just say, well, there it is. There's the construction photo, and I don't need anything else, because why would I question that? That's absurd.
Also, you'll find good old-fashioned cut and pasted, someone with an X-Acto knife out in a early primitive dark room slapping together photos that actually don't belong together to begin with.
This technology of its day was a sure way to make multiple images and combine them into one. There was no way the rewriters wouldn't need this for faking construction pictures. And no, it's not Photoshop, but the layering process is very similar. Victorian photography manipulation, using pencil markings and scraping techniques to draw, erase, and touch up any image desired. The easiest way to achieve your goals is to have a white background that you can remove later in the darkroom. Not uncommon for others to create trick photography and show off their masking and etching skills. For back then, this was the cutting edge of the start of this fraudulent society they've built.
They take an already completed building and they whitewash the skies. They call it vanilla skies.
They'll blotch out the sky and cut away from what they want to leave in the photo. They can cut away what was there and replace it with a gray or white vanilla colored sky.
Vanilla sky, where the background is cut out and you can see the crop marks. You can zoom in and see where the edge of the building there's a little bit of a blurry edge. The sky that would have been the background has been disappeared. It's like, well, why would they do that? If you see one construction photo that's off,
Fucking speaking Slytherin over here.
or they've taken out backgrounds, you have to stop. Why did they go to the extent to do this? You have to ask that question. And if you see hundreds of photos that are done this way, you have to realize this was an industrial scale effort to create a narrative. Exquisite masonry buildings were built in 1 or 2 years. These take time. I mean, you put 1 or 2 years just into the planning. Well, before that, you have the engineering piece, you have the design. You're not just getting a bunch of artists and builders together and knocking these things out. There's architects involved, so there's the design. Then there's the engineering.
Fourth Emperor, thanks for the $2, 2 shekels to start the video.
All of this takes time. These buildings are
JG, thanks for the
years.
$1.99.
And
Checks for
especially
Shem.
when you're
Hell yeah.
crafting every single
They like
corner
it.
of it, like what we're seeing. We're
You
seeing
get all spicy.
every
Respectable Florida, but this talk was
every
meh.
cornice
The
over
same.
a
I'm not
window
convinced.
is celebrated.
All right.
And this is
Bushwhack-
why the architecture is so
bushwhacking.
beautiful. It's
Bushwhacking history in Buffalo. You're pretty far along in this stuff. This is totally for the normie. This video is for the, this is made by Sean Hibbler, who made Level With Me and a lot of other, Flat Earth COVID documentaries. And they're very much to win people over. It's not like supreme education for the people who already are into this stuff. It's very much broaching the topic. So, you might not have gotten what you needed from it, but I think it's great for beginners. Thanks. Shekel for Shem. Hey, more money for you, except it goes to me.
celebration.
Shekel for my fellow Shemite.
You have to ask
9/11.
yourself this: why is there such a lack of
Fourth Emperor,
construction
thanks for the
photos
$2.
from
Adobe
the
Photoshop.
inside of the building?
1850.
The outside's incredible, but the inside is built like a palace. There's such a lack of photos from the inside of these buildings, and they're incredible. When you had the Kleksinski building in Chicago that took 14 years, and then you come back and you look at the one before that, the Federal building, built in 7 years. How is that possible? They're not going to be able to bring these things all the way up to the top, get these people that have no training, and actually create this amazing thing that lasts forever in a timeline where they tell you they were riding around on horses and wagons, where this should not be accepted. It's just not going to happen in the amount of time that they're telling us.
We know people cook the books in other areas. We know people have manipulated photos for the sake of deceiving people, just like NASA does. This isn't a new thing. It's an old thing, but it's still being done today. You find photo manipulation. Now, CGI, the techniques have developed substantially. But back then, they thought they were at the cutting edge. They didn't think that they would be caught onto.
Or maybe they didn't care. Like, by the time they figure this shit out, who cares? We'll be long gone, and who cares?
They have their stories. Everything has something to explain it within the last 100 to 200 years.
I even called the Illinois State Archives building, and they didn't have information on their own courthouse that's located within 1 mile of itself.
Yo, those sunglasses are weak, dude.
Mine in the car.
Illinois State Archives, how may I help you?
Hey, I was just transferred to you because I was looking at the Supreme Court when it was built, and I was just trying to find like records on it.
Sir, I'm just like the receptionist. He's like, you fucking bitch. You're hiding the whole system, right? That's it. I got a funny story about when we were filming this, but yeah, whatever.
And it said it was saying like on their website it was saying that it was built in like a year. So I was just trying to figure out if that was true or not.
I would have you tried contacting the Supreme Court?
Yeah, and they sent me over to you guys.
Sir, this is Jimmy John's. You know, a little bit unfair. That's fine.
I don't know what we would have on the building itself. Let me look here.
Yeah, it was saying on their website that it was the keys were given over on February 4th, 1908. But 1908, they also said that they were moving out of the old state capitol building. So I don't know, 2 months. It doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that sounds kind of odd. Let's see.
It's like, sir, I got a bunch of emails. Sure, I've got 3 kids. I don't give a shit about this YouTube stuff. No, but
Can tell you
any
what.
questions?
We have anything on the building itself.
The stories that we've been told are basically just that. They're stories that we're repeating over and over, and we're just regurgitating what they've been telling us. You could either choose to believe it, or you could choose to research and see the truth, that these are buildings from the past civilization.
I'm standing in front of the sunken ship parking garage, which is in the exact spot as the Occidental building. Now, the Occidental building was built supposedly in 1882 and was destroyed in the Great Fire. That was that giant masonry, massive 3-4 thick wall of just solid brick and stone that was somehow burned down in a fire. So this is what the modern era rolled out for us. We have the sunken ship parking garage, which is just kind of a thumb in the nose of this world that we're living in now. Yeah, salt in the wound, but I think it's just good that we remember the past and know what used to be there and the glory of the old world as it was.
On a lot of these old glorious structures, you'll start seeing old cheap banners, signs just kind of get slapped on to these old glorious stone buildings. That's true. They simply don't fit together.
These buildings were not intended to become money-driven establishments, and those they kept turned into such. It's funny that we never hear through the passing down of generations stories regarding any of the difficulties a nation would face building a magnitude of stone and brick palaces.
Yeah, Big Sour.
Why are none of our grandparents
Yo, bro.
or great-grandparents ever speaking highly of these buildings? If they were truly
They
built
need
in the
some of
early
that Paul
1900s,
Cook
do you
under
think
the
one of our
desk, you know
grandparents
what
would
I'm
have been like,
saying?
yeah, I was at the site and I'm so
Some of
proud
that.
of building that? Or my friend, I knew somebody and he was over there building that building. Not one time. Does that sound odd? In order to build some of these buildings in a year, you'd have to have hundreds of people, like daily, sleeping there. You'd have to have people with houses located on site because they got their horse and their wagon. Are they traveling home at night? Where are these horses staying during the day when they're building these buildings? And it just, the story doesn't add up. If it was really, truly built, like they say, then there would be so much proof. And sorry, but saying that a photo wasn't available or hard to take back then, that's just not.
Hey,
that's
Brian
not gonna
Phillips.
cut it. You've taken a
Is
photo
that picture
before.
of the fat
Why
guy
couldn't you take
in
another
your
one?
picture? Or you?
They transported all these materials from
Wait,
hundreds
wait,
of miles
pause it,
away,
pause it.
and it got there perfectly. There was never an issue. It just isn't logically possible.
What's up, Sean?
Oh, I just thought you were gonna go off on that guy.
Nope.
My bad. Yeah, nothing.
Possible.
As an architect of 20 years, I have a pretty good understanding of how materials react to the elements over time. Modern infrastructure of Seattle is at best 140 years old. There's no room in that narrative for a building to be showing the type of weathering that we're seeing beyond. So just to me, that one building alone is further evidence that this city was here for a long time. To me, it's been there for centuries. I would give this building 300 years. I like to look at a building as telling its own story. I'd like to say that stones don't lie. Stones are always going to tell you the truth. And if you look at it through that lens and you let it tell its own story, then something else emerges entirely.
There are blocks, stones used in some of the constructions of places like Machu Picchu, even St. Augustine, Florida, just sitting there, a hewn stone that no amount of men could have dragged. It would have taken something larger, something more technologically assisted. That is, of course, unless we're talking about people of substantial size.
In many ancient books all over the world, they speak of giants that existed and alongside what we would call regular sized people now.
People who were larger might have had an easier time hauling, hewing, placing, arranging stones of this size that we see in the megaliths of the Americas, that we see in the megaliths of the whole world, may have been the result of giants.
I've been using critical thinking. It just doesn't make any sense as to why build at such a large scale for people our size.
That's the weirdest part, is when you have doorways in random buildings that are too big. They're 20 feet high. Why would you build a door frame that's 20 feet high for a population that is so small?
Why would a regular sized human, not just why, but how would a regular sized human make something so massive? It just boggles the mind.
Why do 6-foot men and 5-foot women need that?
We don't do that. We build door frames that are proportionate to our size.
They're just absolutely huge. No sense whatsoever. Church is exactly the same now, just massive doors. And just like you go through a little door here to get in there. I noticed when I was in Europe last, they had some doors that took photographs of, and the lock on the door is up here. Yeah, for taller people.
You have these door frames that are in stone. You can't take them away. And they're 20 feet in the air or taller. And then you have our door frame that we build inside of the door frame so that we fit through normally. We're much shorter than they were as a civilization.
Think about it. You'd have to be a fucking moron to build a door that's 30 or 40 feet high if you're 6 foot tall and you can't even reach the doorknob.
Across this plain, we find much evidence, abounding evidence of giants.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Florida
only in the
giants,
major
baby.
city centers
I
of
sent
this
him those
world,
pictures.
but
Yeah,
in the
picture.
burial mounds and ancient ruins of the old world. And what you find around the major city centers is giant doorways.
We had giant books. We had giant helmets. We had giant knives, giant
hang on, let's
samurai
rewind
swords,
real
giant.
You guys want to know what Archaix's mom sounds like when she's hopping out my crib?
We had giant.
You guys want to hear the sound
What
of
you find
Archaix
around the
dropping
major
this
city
out?
centers is giant doorways.
We had giant books. We had giant helmets.
Hell
We
yeah.
had giant
All you need right there.
knives, giant samurai swords, giant rifles. We had giant shoes. We had giant crowns. We had giant typewriters, giant bells.
Giant this and that, things that don't seem suited for the average sized person, even on the taller side. It just doesn't make sense. And to think that large communities of people got together and built structures that were excessive, costly to begin with, but then you're adding the factor that they're building for a greater size than they need. It's not very cost efficient. It's not in line with what we're told about frontier America.
So even just compared to me,
oh yeah,
in terms of a hip placement,
boom,
my knee is up here, and I'm 5'11". So these are really large individuals. Really large individuals.
And then when you that's Dr. Jeffrey Thomas with FSU Department of Anthropology. Watch that one more time.
It's not in line with what we're told about frontier
Big
America.
bones.
So even just compared to me, in
Florida
terms of a
Giant,
hip
y'all.
placement, my knee is up here, and I'm 5'11". So these are really large individuals. Really large individuals.
And then when you think about it, it's not even that big of a deal, really. Like, what's the big deal? There was giant people.
See, Shem, if you want to, scrutinize stuff, Giants is where I put a lot of my eggs. Right? That's something that I will go to bat for 100%. I can give you tons of specifics. Right? So that's something that I'll go to bat way more than, a lot of these topics. I'm
Not
behind
mine.
it all, but you're right. You expect a lot out of, you expect a lot of answers. Well, Giants, I think we have a lot of answers. I think it's pretty clear cut. And, it's not ridiculous to put 2 and 2 together. Larger buildings, larger people aren't here anymore.
I mean, I've seen
Guys, this
some
shit got censored like crazy. It got hacked. The release got hacked on the premiere for at least one of the sites, stewpeters.com, I think. But the link for this video is in the full movie. The link's in the description. The Rumble link.
unearthings of skeletons of giants and all this type of shit. Like, and what's so funny is, people will dismiss giants even though there's a myriad of evidence to it, at the very least, suggest that they existed, right? But there's nothing that would even suggest that dinosaurs fucking existed. And y'all motherfuckers believe in them. Okay? If you were to find giant bones like that. Oh, give me that. That's yeah. That's the femur of a velociraptor. Get the fuck out of here. This is bullshit.
The Smithsonian Institute has the bones. They've found this at Cahokia. And there are articles saying that
Cahokia.
they took these bones from the
Cahokia.
St. Louis area.
Whatever. I'm
and
not
put
a-
them in the Smithsonian
I'm not-
Institute.
not a
They're not telling us
pronunciation
that they have
princess or
them.
anything,
When really
but-
we know they're either in the basement or they destroyed them or threw them away. There's so many news articles
matter, just
from the
buy the shirt.
1800s and the early 1900s
shirt,
of them destroying or disposing of these bones into the ocean.
They had to cover it up. There's no room for giants in their new world, and they have to lie to us about it. They had to write the storybooks telling us that we came from monkeys.
I think everything was bigger. I think everything was much bigger. I think there was more oxygen in the air. The trees were much bigger. The places were much bigger. They were better. They had all the technology. These people may have left or may have been killed off. My opinion is that they went for more land. I don't think they're allowed to be here. I think this is all an operation to repopulate this place and to be controlled by the leaders, so-called leaders.
If you go back to the biblical scriptures, when the Nephilim came about from the fallen angels breeding with the daughters of men, they bore giants. It's in black and white, it tells you. There's plenty of evidence physically. We had a race of
And
giants.
these ones
We
too.
are not
Ocala
that
giant.
race.
Hell
We
yeah.
are men. They bore giants. It's in black and white. It
Giant skull out of Texas. That's been in a couple of my videos. I sent that to Sean.
tells you.
And this one,
There's
not many
plenty of
people know
evidence
about.
physically. We had
Ocala, Florida. Super crazy story about all these caverns. Caves are unusual for Florida. There's a bunch of caverns in Ocala, and they'd find giants' bones in the caverns, right? Everyone knows about Lovelock. Why don't people know about this? This was such like a popular folklore. They put this fucking blow up giant over the front entrance. You had to walk through his legs to get in. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Coca-Cola, one of their main bottling plants was in Ocala. They're using some spring water from over here too. So
and a race of giants. We are not that race. We are a different race.
Yeah.
We are a different set of people.
I think we were cohabiting. I think they were doing the same time.
Most of them play basketball.
Yeah, man. Well, that's it. They're in the Harlem Globetrotters undercover, aren't they?
Talk of the Nephilim going into, having sex with regular people and creating some sort
Hell
of
yeah.
mutants
We
and all
was
this type
fucking
of
regular
shit.
people.
grandpa. Yeah.
You're right.
Big ass tall. Yao Ming's
Listen.
grandpa.
Yeah, we see a lot of tall people in the NBA and all of that. Is this a remnant in the DNA?
It's a fact that there were giants. It's not a conspiracy theory. I mean, we have proof of this. What makes more sense? You have a civilization that's short and tiny and riding around on donkeys, or you've got a tall, very strong population that's smart and capable and have experience that are building them that's short
that?
and tiny and riding around on donkeys,
Like
or you've got a
Shem?
tall, very strong population that's smart,
Like
and capable,
Old
and
World
have
Florida.
experience that are building these
Giant
cathedrals
Trip
and
versus Old World
basilicas.
Florida.
The places that are built
poison.
are massive. It's proportionate to their size.
Donkey
You find
riders or
skeleton after skeleton exhumed from the mounds of America.
I'll
the
take-
mounds
I'll
of
take riding
Florida,
on a
South
donkey, that's fine with
America.
me.
Go
For real, yeah.
Shouts to the Messiah.
I see what you did. Shem's got not only does he have a inferiority complex,
here we go.
he has a Messiah complex too. He's got Russell Brand syndrome.
We was Kangs. Yeah, I don't know. Giants definitely. I mean, we have tons of evidence for them. The sarcophagi alone of all these ancient places. I mean, they're massive. So, not anti-giant. Let's continue. Tons of historical sources that are considered mainstream also talk about them.
Right.
over to Mesopotamia and you'll find
Boom.
the same thing. Giant people buried under the ground. And these were whole races. These were not, one guy who gets gigantism by accident.
There's still giant skeletons, giant skulls that are being
Oh, I sent that one too.
randomly, and the
Weird shaped skulls.
Gets gigantism by accident.
there's still giant skeletons, giant skulls.
Bahamas, elongated skull. I mean, just look at the difference in shape. You know, one doesn't have a bottom jaw, but still, the difference in forehead. That's crazy. Imagine seeing those two people right next to each other.
I'd rather hang out with the guy on the left.
Why? Because of the frontal lobe. He's got more better decision making, more impulse control.
Yeah, don't have to lock my car.
Right. I think so too. That might be true. Frontal lobe for the win.
That are being uncovered.
Boom. Damn, Shoddy. Yo. Shoddy in the bottom right. I'm trying to hit that shit from the back. Yo. Damn, girl, you got that. Fuck. You got that shit. Megan, I don't know. Gotta think of a big butt.
Looks uncomfortable.
Hmm?
Looks very uncomfortable, whatever that is.
God damn, man. Shem, you trying to hit that shit from the back. Yo. Dude, guys, I when we were backstage, I caught Shem rewinding to this part like over and over.
Dude,
Before it went live.
I thought you said you weren't gonna tell him, man.
Yeah. Whoo! Shoddy, drop it to the flow. Flow rider. Shoddy got that apple bottom juice. All right, we'll keep going.
Randomly, and the push is really to completely discount that and say, nope, not true.
Yo, Shoddy be giving you dome
the
and you can spank that shit. You can spank it from the top while she's giving you dome.
Jesus.
That booty head.
Century is full of
Why
the
them
findings of
Bahamas
giant
lady-
bones. Didn't happen a long time ago. This happened recently.
Human history is framed as to convince the average Joe that all of the luxuries, the benefits, technological advances in their life, all of those things are the mere fruits of the industrial age and an industrial way of life, and the banking systems that followed, the methods of travel that became cemented after the industrial age.
In the 1800s, all of the world's inventions just shit out of nowhere. Okay, so you got like literally everything from the Underground Railway to the railways, the transport system, modern shipping, the modern
Yes, yeah, I remember
trades,
about
banking, the whole thing, everything just arrives, you know, around.
Hey, Jason, will you flip the waffles, please? Jason, will you let me out of the basement now, please?
1850, when records started, coincidentally, because all of our birth records were never official until 1850. Before then, they were in church parishes and they were highly controlled, as is the information in the church. So nobody can really look that far back into, you know, into the past to find out their ancestry.
We are convinced that to be human today is a result of ingenuity in the industrial age. This is not true.
Another element of history they've conveniently helped you forget about. A luxurious form of travel that was promptly removed from our skies.
Airships are the oldest form of air travel. They're the most time tested. Now they've been taken out of circulation. A lot of people have the false misconception that if you were traveling on an airship, you would be confined to the little cabins that were suspended from the bottom. You know, like the pilot's cockpit. You'd probably feel a little iffy about those coming down, being on the bottom of the ship. It's coming down, you look like you're gonna get smushed. Well, that big blimp is not just a balloon. in many, many airships of the old world, you had access into that large cavity of the blimp. And there were restaurants, there were bars, there were dance halls, things like this. This is all a matter of fact.
Why would they build such a big thing and not put anything inside?
Shem, where are we at with
So it's
airships?
basically like a cruise, but a comfortable
Pretty-
cruise where, you know,
I
you're not
like
sitting
them.
in the
I
bottom
think it's
part
weird
of
how you
the
can't find
airship
any.
where they normally show you on a
You can't find
blimp.
like any information about the like escape pods that they had on the airships, which they likely had. I've seen some evidence of them existing that if something happened, they would have like these they call them like lifeboats or something. But I've only seen it in written form, so when I look up, try to find pictures of it or something, it doesn't exist. But some old books that I've read talk about lifeboats, something called a lifeboat on an airship where you could like drop down and survive if there's some sort of accident. I think that's kind of weird how you don't hear about that.
You're sitting in the airship. It's a beautiful place.
A beautiful, easy, graceful method of travel flushed down the drains. They're actually safer than airplanes. And what we had was a mass media event in the form of the Hindenburg, which actually scared most of the world's population away from ever getting in an airship again.
Yeah, make sure to pray for Shem, guys. Guys, let's just stop it right here. Lord Jesus, we ask that you please bring Shem into your heart.
Freeze.
Motherfucker.
Freeze.
Yeah, well, sorry, I have to fucking pronounce your fake, lame crypto Jew pseudonym, Shem. Trying to work your fake name in the fucking.
That's because individuality is not important, and neither is my name.
Wow. Yeah. Shem's like anonymous, guys. It's so mysterious.
You literally said my name on the last stream. Doesn't
I?
change anything. It doesn't change
By
anything
accident?
because it's not a secret. It's just I don't want credit for anything because it's not about that.
I said it by accident or on purpose.
Didn't even think about it. Didn't even think. It just kept going because it doesn't matter.
Whatever. My bad. You can say my name if you want to. It's okay.
I don't know what it is.
You don't know what it is? Yes,
I've
you
only
do.
called you it 100 times.
Right. Yeah, it's your middle name. Mom named you after me. But Jack Webb, yeah. No, I'm only teasing, but for real. Yeah.
Freeze.
Oh my god. You be saying preach for the rest of my life. Jeez, Lord Jesus.
Let's finish this up because
Please.
I have some questions, but I don't want to derail the stream too much.
You can derail whatever. Just don't call me triggered for acting the way I act, people. Okay. You would not have an easy time tangoing with Shem over here. It's like trying to run through a forest of vines at full speed. Like he's just so tangly.
Draining.
A little
Drain
bit.
the energy.
Pisces can suck all the excitement out of the room sometimes.
But yeah, let's get back into it. I have stuff written down, so we're good.
What did you want to talk about? Only teasing.
Nothing. I just want to see if maybe it'll be brought up in the video. But the horse and one thing is you don't want to do when you watch this is don't play a drinking game where every time they say horse and buggy, you get to take a drink because you'll be plastered. Let's continue.
Whatever. Horse and buggy, it's a powerful visualization, right? Thinking of horse and buggy, and yeah, all these stones getting dragged. They got to get dragged somehow. The railroad ends somewhere. Then it does have to cross a dirt road. In St. Augustine, it quite literally was horse and buggy. And you can see some of the so-called construction photos in St. Augustine. You can see where the railroad ends, and then they did have to horse and buggy. Big old pieces of equipment, building blocks across dirt. Very super primitive. So
I just don't see how that's seen as primitive or not advanced at all. You have to build the buggy, you have to tame the horses. That's pretty
right.
advanced.
Well, I'm with you. You know, Al Dog came on the channel and said something to that effect about horse and buggy being, or he tweeted it maybe one time. Horse and buggy's badass and super advanced. I'm with you. Absolutely. But let's be honest. If you had to, you know, move the Coral Castle from one city to another, are you going to do it with a horse and a buggy, or are you going to take the flatbed truck?
Oh no, I mean, yeah, no doubt.
So these guys didn't have the flatbed truck. That might have made them more masterful and careful and, you know, meticulous workers, craftsmen, but it's worth noting. All right. Let's keep it moving.
It's starting to rain again. The rain had slacked
Oh,
up
this
a
is
little
sad.
bit. The back motors of the ship are just holding it just enough to keep it. It bursts into flames. Get it started. Get it started. It's right and it's right.
Oh no.
It's right. It's terrible. Oh my! Get out of the way, please. It's running, bursting into flames, and it's falling on the mooring pads, and all the folks agree that this is terrible. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the world. Oh, it's like 20, 400 or 500 feet into the sky, and it's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is crashing to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the furniture speeding around it. I don't do it. I can't talk to people. There's friends around there. I can't talk, ladies and gentlemen. Honest, it's just laying down massive smoking wreckage. And everybody can't hardly breathe and talk and screaming. Lady, I'm sorry. I can hardly breathe. I'm going to step inside while I cannot see it. Charlie, that's terrible. I can't. Listen, folks, I'm going to have to stop for a minute because I've lost the voice. This is the worst thing I've ever witnessed.
Oh no, can't do this. They're dangerous. With the footage
I
of flaming
was laughing because the
Hindenburg,
guy's
you know,
voice sounds
falling out
so
of the
weird.
sky. Nope, no more airships. But there's a lot of evidence, shall we say, that's available to show that yes, there were airships and they were a pre-existing technology. And
We still happen in Ohio.
one of the ways that they get rid of things is to say, like, it's unsafe, safety hazard, we can't do this anymore.
And I don't want to be flying in that again because there's just fire up in the air and there's no way I would ever travel in that again. So I'd rather pick to be in an airplane.
Let's stick with our helicopters and our airplanes, and we're gonna can airships.
What's a more tranquil form of travel? Airship or airplane? You can't tell me that everyone isn't terrified getting up on that tarmac and taking off on an airplane.
On an airplane, you're stuck. You've got 60 to 100 people stuck on this little plane. You can't travel that far with the tanks that they have. With an airship, you can travel very far and you can travel with a lot of people. You could take mass amounts of people to these other lands that are much further than we could ever imagine.
The airships of Germany were touching down in Opelika, Florida for years. And Glenn Curtis, the man who opened up that Opelika airport, is a man embroiled in scandal. So if anyone's telling lies here, it's those guys.
Glenn Curtis was nicknamed fastest man alive for breaking top speed records on a motorcycle using gas engines. And he helped push gas as superior to steam and other techniques. He started slapping gas engines on airships too, and he helped get them off of other methods. Then he did the same thing with airplanes in direct competition with the Wright brothers. He tried to steal the Wright brothers' patents with the help of the Smithsonian.
Towards the end, they started filling them with dirtier gas, trying to get them to be gas propelled. That was not the case. Many of these were steam. In some instances, just like a submarine. They can try and hide this from us a little bit, but you, the viewer, can go and look this up for yourself. The blimps were a lot more sophisticated than we're told. And going back to the comparison between airplane and blimp, they can literally and metaphorically bottleneck the costs of travel by only allowing so many people onto this tiny little tube that's traveling so fast, so dangerous. We'll let this go by.
Speaking of modern day airplanes,
You can only fit maybe a couple hundred onto an airplane when you could fit a couple thousand onto an airship. Number one, it's graceful, but number two, you can fit way more people. You can have way more facilities on that. It's like almost like a traveling city. So the airships provided something that airplanes don't. They were safer in terms of the speed of travel, the danger of landing somewhere you're not supposed to.
To think, if your fear of flying is caused by open waters, in the case of an emergency, you would now have a way to safely dock on a boat. And a fear of landing could be comforted by a slow docking airship.
Things like the Eiffel Tower, which we were told was built for a World's Fair, but there's Eiffel Towers everywhere.
This will give you an opportunity for a balloon to come in to your city and moor around, and you get straight out, and it delivers you to the place where you want to be. Now, don't think this is beyond the bounds of possibility. They actually did it. Hindenburg used to couple up to the top of the Empire State Building. Doorway would come out, gantry would come out, and everyone would climb out of the Zeppelin into the Empire State Building, and they've done it in LA, in Chicago. These balloons were the transport of the day.
Believe it or not, it was not uncommon for people to fly their airships straight into downtown New York City and to dock those airships in the steeples, in the finials, the towers, the spires of places like New York City, Chicago, major cities in Germany, England, you name it. Airships were docking. They would offload people into the tippy tops of buildings.
I think that there was more than just airships. I think that the technology goes further than that. I think that these things were much more powerful, and I think that they went further than we can ever imagine to lands that we're not told about.
Behind the scenes, they are still making these, but we wouldn't have access for making our own.
if you wanted to build an airship today, you can't, because NASA owns 99% of the helium. The tech back then was possibly even more than what we have now. There's videos in the 1930s, 1940s of hoverboards and portable scooters that ran off of electricity. They used to have self-parking cars.
Right when photography was invented, you have these electric trolleys running wireless around cities. 20 years later, they'd all be breaking down, then went on to wires, then went on to the slower Edison electric grid.
And remember that they have much, much more than what they're giving us. They are slowly giving us back the technology that was once here, that they found from the previous civilization.
It's funny, right? Because they drop it back in doses, pretend like they're the heroes to reintroduce it. But meanwhile, that very thing that was designed to create freedom and creativity within humanity is now spun.
I'm gonna go smoke a bowl.
For
Hold it down, okay?
control. But
Thank
it's
you.
dropped in those doses where we just accept it, and the line gets pushed further and further and further, and people just sit back and they're just like, "This is life."
Wireless energy, powered by the ether, existed way before big oil. We all know how dirty the oil companies are, but to think about the things we could have if they never existed.
An oil refining process was invented in 1854 by somebody in Pittsburgh. By 1870, John Rockefeller and Henry Flagler established the Standard Oil Company. And so it was like they needed to get a replacement energy source as quickly as possible. And they got it from this mining of resources.
Back in the 1800s, mainstream academia had 18 additional elements on the periodic table of elements, ether being one of those, right? And somewhere along the line, when Albert Einstein came out with his theory of relativity and started doing lectures across the country and the world, that anybody that spoke about ether at that time was completely, like, their reputation was destroyed. They lost their laboratories, they lost their teaching jobs, like what we saw in 2020.
A lot of times they'll leave the breadcrumbs. A lot of times the truth is in plain sight. So with that, Benjamin Franklin sending up the key on the kite, that's essentially you, the average American, sending up their drone with a copper wire and harvesting electricity straight from the ether.
I think that the ancients understood very well that the ether is real and that there's ways of channeling atmospheric energy, earth energy, and I think that they built their buildings with this in mind.
If we had access to free energy, I mean, imagine if you could just walk into the forest anywhere you want, and you could just put up a little device and a resonator, and you can build yourself a castle and just do it, levitate stones, and just create a kingdom. Well, that's not very good for Joe Biden. How's he going to tax you? And how's FEMA going to work with you in that situation? And how, that's why it's so dangerous to them.
That doesn't work when you're introducing an electric system that is dependent upon a power source, a bunch of wires, meters, and your output that you're having to pay for, where you become dependent on a system of scarcity. This old way of doing things was based upon a system of abundance and plenty, because there's no end of the energy that's all around us all the time. There's another way of doing things. We don't have to live in this way of constant crisis because of constant scarcity. We can break through it. And I think that we're on the verge of rediscovering this knowledge at a very curious time where the old system is actually falling apart.
Everyone knew there was an ether. Most buildings were constructed in that manner until they
How we
came
doing,
in
Shem?
and started destroying things and indoctrinating us.
You go through and you start finding these correlations. You start finding how the free energy worked, what the power stations were, how all these places have got these certain buildings and fountains and certain copper top roofings and all the stuff for landing sites, for flying machines. And you start to see that all of this stuff is way too similar all around the world for there not to have been a single culture.
Many times these towers held old world technologies, such as bells, which would send out resonant frequencies into the community beyond. So many photos of bells being rounded up all over Europe. We're living in a time where we're waking up to what we so recently had.
The pipe organ is a healing machine. That's why it was integral to the construction of ancient Gothic cathedrals. The organ was the centerpiece of the church, of the cathedral. Now, around the building, up, down, around, beneath, you had pipes and essentially speakers blasting this music into the cathedral.
They placed these beautiful organs under these stained glass windows, which were treated with lead and specific properties. And these, they work like car speakers. They augment the resonance and the sound out into the ether outside. So everyone outside in the community is invigorated, is on a higher state of consciousness, literally being the best they can. And you can see it in the pictures of these people in the day. Everyone is healthy.
Anyone who's been around for a full volume, live, authentic pipe organ performance will tell you your bones rattle, your organs start to respond, your hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Walk into a well-made stone cathedral, hear the pipe organ, sit there and saturate in the healing frequencies yourself. Cathedrals are something beyond just a center for worship. They are healing machines. And the pipe organ of the cathedral is just one tiny little finger of this whole realm that we're talking about.
You've got starports, which I call a gateway topic because the same structure exists all over the earth, have been given to us as fortifications that were built for these different wars, which made them military targets. And so they have an excuse for why it was built in whatever location. And then they have an excuse for why it was destroyed.
So in school, we learn about one fire. We learn about the Chicago Great Fire.
case of the Great Chicago Fire, there was a lot of fanfare over Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicking over the lantern.
The legend is that Mrs. O'Leary's cow in a barn kicked over a lantern, and that caused the entire fire. And poor Mrs. O'Leary and her family had their lives ruined because of this.
We only learned about Chicago. And I remember going to summer camp, and we're sitting around the campfire, and it's one dark night when we were all in bed. Bum, bum, bum. Old Miss O'Leary took a lantern to her shed, and when the cow kicked it over, she turned around and said, "There'll be a hot time in the old town tonight. Fire, fire, fire." And we would yell fire louder and louder with each verse. And we do this like 10 times to where it was echoing back to us across the lake. And now when I think about it, it's like how many kids growing up in America were singing this song about this stupid story. What I realize is that it's like an incantation and it's spellcasting. Where did this song come from? It's a story that they wanted the population to come to embrace and believe as part of the founding mythos of the country and who we are as a people. Well, lo and behold, as an architect with the keen interest in history, I come to find out only within the last few years that there were fires in every major city. And then I come to find out that it's not just wooden shanty town built out of matchsticks. We're looking at city after city after city with photographic evidence showing masonry buildings of the most exquisite type.
Philadelphia, New York, Boston. You come down to Florida, Jacksonville, Miami. Every major city at one point was burned to the ground. Believe it or not, these were stone cities. These were megalithic stone cities, ancient metropolises that were burned down as if they were made from wood. Very quickly. Now we can speculate as to what the source of that destruction was, from above, from below, arson, biblical destruction, you name it. Nonetheless, every major city in America, if not Europe and the entire world, saw a great devastation by a fire.
We'll see pictures of people walking on the sidewalk like no big deal. I mean, that's subjective, but I mean, that's what it looks like. The pictures are strange. The sequence of events that are supposed to have taken place are strange.
Discarded
So,
cigarette.
there's just a lot of clues, if
Sorry?
you will.
Discarded cigarette for that one excuse. Yeah, the Great Chicago Fire is
Pictures
the same.
are strange. The sequence of events that are supposed to have taken place
Started
are
cigarette,
strange.
hot, strong
So,
winds,
there's just a
hot
lot of
ashes from a pipe.
clues, if you will, that these weren't random events like somebody wants us to believe.
If you look at photos of even the buildings that still exist
800 in the house,
of the
yo.
old world, they always give
Drop
a
an orange
backstory
in
for
the
why they
chat.
took them
You're fucking
down.
with the movie.
But
Drop an orange in this. Drop an orange if you're down with Old World Florida, down with the Old World Order movie. Drop a fish in the chat if you're a Shemite, if you support Shem. If you're a Tartarian truth, bro. Drop a fish in the chat.
I don't know if
Drop
you're
an
gonna
orange.
bring this up or not, but what's interesting about the Chicago Fire too is that the O'Leary Barn is like one of the only structures to survive it, the place where it allegedly started.
Right.
They say
So
that
it started there, and it's where it's like one of the final remnants.
it's like it was completely unscathed by the fire, but everything else got destroyed. And the fire even jumped across water to reach other locations, apparently. They say that the reason that it got so out of control is because the fire department, they used to have these levers that they would pull to mark the address, and they pulled the wrong one, so they actually drove past the O'Leary fire at first and then realized too late that they had missed it.
Wow. Yeah, we
Yeah.
go into a specific story a little bit down here that kind of explains how things were spontaneously combusting.
it's just curious why so many towers are missing now. And so Pioneer Square is one of those examples. And this was built in the immediate aftermath of the fire in 1889. Is curious because it appears on a real estate map.
Yep,
from
does sound like
before the
Lahaina.
fire
They talk about
in
Lahaina.
a fully and intact form.
In order for stone to burn down, it has to reach 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. House fire reaches the temperature of 1,000 degrees. That's half. It's impossible for any stone building to be burning down. The 1800s and earlier fires may have been fake. They try to explain away multiple buildings with fire stories and multiple courthouses built on the same site in just a year with the same architect, and they're just demolishing these buildings.
This is exactly why my fireplace right here is made of brick and stone, because it doesn't melt. You got to be an idiot to think that these forest fires are going to be melting brick and stone. Use your head, guys.
As they are busy dismantling it in the 3D reality that we experience, it was part of a program to dismantle the old world and shock us into an acceptance of basically the new world order.
And that's why I wanted to speak to you today about the new world taking shape around us, about the prospects for a new world order now within our reach.
It's the new order, Babylon banging down your door. The war pigs hungry for war. We rally the troops and raise the sword. Once and for all, it's the new order. Babylon begging for your souls. They coming and they want control. Yeah, they come. We burn their system to the floor. Once and for all, it's time to wake the fuck up.
So you had
Thought he was about to go
what
to
I
a
would
verse.
call the reset of history.
Fresh
according
Princess
to
Hartar,
a very specific narrative. I mean, it didn't change very much. And using the media like they do today to publish it, print it, this is what happened, these are all the details, these are all the people involved, we got it down on record. So again, they're saying, okay, everything was built out of wood, like a Hollywood movie set. Didn't hold up, it caught fire. So we came in and we built all of these beautiful structures to make sure they wouldn't burn down again. And that is told repeatedly.
You look at any major city, they suffered this same fate. And I don't think it's a simple matter of, oh, they were just so stupid. They didn't know. They put candles all over the place and let their cities keep setting on fire. The stone courthouses, the stone banks, into smithereens. Now in Jacksonville, we actually had a fire where there are firsthand accounts of people who were escaping the fire. And once they thought they had escaped to a safe distance, were watching the fire, because that's what people used to do back then. You wasn't much of a fire department. They just said, well, it's burning, just time to take photos and watch. And what they actually did was they were sitting up on a hill watching Jacksonville burn. They said that
Pay attention, guys.
things on their persons started spontaneously combusting.
This is the
Pocket
receipts.
watches, buttons, things that were made of certain materials were combusting. This was happening back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Cities would spontaneously combust with no sufficient cause, no suitable explanation. But they're in a covered carriage. What happens? Materials on their body are still spontaneously combusting out of nowhere, sparking into flames. Now, how could that be the case if this is a local fire spreading to anything that it touches? These people were hundreds of yards away, if not more, from the fire. There weren't embers falling on them that they couldn't see, because like I said, they were already in the cab. So this is just one instance in Florida, and you can go look up your own city, the closest major city to you, and you'll find this same fate.
You look at destruction from World War I, World War II, it looks exactly the same. So these weapons have been around for a long time.
The biggest factor to 9/11 was the erasure of evidence, erasing the evidence of the wrongdoings of the government, the financial institutions, you name it. You had evidence being destroyed. What do they call it? Jewish lightning, for lack of a better word, insurance fraud, destruction
Jewish
of evidence.
lightning. You like that?
Those two typically go hand in hand when we're talking
You
about
ever heard about
buildings
Jewish
falling
lightning?
down out of thin air.
Yes, I just remember.
We're smoking some of that Building 7 Kush as we speak.
Seattle burned down, the downtown.
2 months later,
Smoking some of that
Ellensburg,
Gaza,
which was at
Zaza.
that time a major city in central
The
Washington
Gaza, Zaza.
territory, burned down. 2 months after that, Spokane, which was another major city on the eastern flank of the territory, burned down. And when I discovered that, I just went, hold on a second. Like, there's something else entirely going on in the backstory.
It's like they want to get rid of these beautiful structures. And some are still in use, but the ones that are inconvenient to the narrative, they just want gone. And there's also probably a component of the energy grid in all of this as well, because they keep what they can use. They keep what benefits them. And at some point they determine, okay, we don't need that anymore for whatever the reason.
Part of the story of the fires is that the fire chief wasn't in town at the time. He was away on some conference.
Like what?
And so the command structure.
I like how she's open-ended with her questions there. Nice to hear. There you go, a compliment.
Wow, sure.
Not everything's negative. We got it. Let's do it.
She was broken, so the mayor at the time in Seattle was the one that was calling shots. And he was making decisions that they should go in and make what they call fire breaks between buildings, meaning actually bringing dynamite into buildings and blowing them up. And that's acknowledged. And that's acknowledged in Boston, the Boston fire, in city after city, what's called a tactic to contain fires. And then they often say, well, look back in retrospect, maybe it wasn't the best idea. Well, what was causing these fires and what was causing this type of damage in the first place needs to be examined. So when you have a broken command structure and somebody else is calling the shots, that's really curious to me, because that's the same thing that happened in Lahaina.
The wildfires that swept through Maui are the deadliest in U.S. history in more than a century. On social media, people are speculating about what could have caused the fires. One trending theory is that the fires started due to an attack from a directed energy weapon. They're weapons like lasers that use energy fired at the speed of light to damage or destroy targets. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, many countries, including the U.S., are researching their use.
Yep, they flipped the police chief Pelletier, who was from the Vegas shooting. They made 10 emergency declarations all about Uncle Billy's and all about Banyan Drive and all this stuff. And to believe it or not, the Sunshine Law, where they removed the Sunshine Law or suspended it, it wasn't in these 10 proclamations that they really promoted and really blew up all over the news. It wasn't in any of them. It was in this quiet little Affordable Housing Act on the side. Truly, it does look like only the places they wanted. Safeway didn't get hit. The gas stations didn't get hit. They knew what was going to go where. It's either they did it from the top with the laser energy weapon, like others say, or it came from the bottom. But one thing was crazy is that over 24 hours later, they were still letting the fire burn. The fire was blowing so fast, the wind, it said it moved 1 mile in 10 seconds. I only think I would think in my head could move 1 mile in 10 seconds. Some kind of boom one time, the whole place.
With the fires from Maui, I mean, I've got in my head, these rows of cars that are just completely burned.
Honestly, none of it looks like a fire.
It
looks like it's been destroyed with like some weapon or something from an angle.
Just completely destroyed by a direct energy weapon. Just buildings sliced in half. You have melted cars. You have melted everything. I mean, it's just destroyed by a direct energy.
It looks like a fire.
Yeah, that's.
It looks like it's been destroyed with like some weapon or something from an angle.
Just completely destroyed by a direct energy weapon. Just buildings sliced in half. You have melted cars. You have melted everything. I mean, it just completely looks like a war zone.
Send a laser from a directed energy weapon against.
We was lasers, Joe.
And then step back and say, oh, that was natural, or too bad, so sad. And all those people are left homeless and they don't get any help. And people aren't being allowed to get out of there. When it's happening, they're jumping in the water and poof, and everything looks like, cars are burned out. And people are going, whoa, what's going on here? And they're not getting any answers.
You know, I got hella bitches in the DMs trying to
And
see
the current
this direct
administration
energy weapon.
also has the slogan of Build Back Better, which was the excuse given for these other great fires. Well, everything was wooden. So look what we did. We built it back with this solid brick. I think what we're seeing now was never supposed to happen this quickly. I think all of these things were supposed to happen without us even being aware of it.
I can only think, why else would you want to do that? You know, it gets rid of everything. There's no fingerprints. There's nothing. It's done. There's nobody to talk. They get rid of all the buildings. What stories is there to tell?
His story is what they're going to tell. It's what they did tell us. Distorting a timeline, laced with cover-ups and preventing public awareness of our own cities being destroyed. How powerful are these weapons? And when did they truly originate?
So this frog should have turned to ash.
This
It even
is,
has some
guys,
dates with cover
guys,
originate.
they found this archaic subscriber in his
So
apartment
this
in Lahaina.
frog should have turned to ash.
It even has some ashes
He
on
was
the
at
bottom,
his
kind
computer
of gray.
with a bottle of
It got a
Vaseline
little bit
on his desk.
on the edge of some heat, but it didn't contort it or anything.
He
It's
had
just
just
perfectly
donated his
symmetrical.
last,
Petrified. And it seems
his
mostly
last
hollow,
PayPal token.
but the skin is totally solid and intact.
There have been a lot of people that
He
have been
escaped the
talking
Matrix.
about
He
the
escaped
subject of meltology.
Simulacrum.
And my take on that and other things is that's part of it. It's not all of it. And what I believe is that there was a directed energy attack on the Earth's grid system that blew out the grids. And that caused swamps, deserts. It caused land to just shear
wow.
off
This
and fall
escalated
into the
quickly.
ocean. And
This is World
that
War.
would have caused melted buildings as well.
What's up?
Just escalated quickly, and now we're going with like like worldwide cataclysms. I wasn't expecting that. Let's continue. We only got what, 9 minutes left? Huh.
Something like that.
A really good example on top of my head is a place called Red Rocks State Park in California. It looks melted. And there's other examples as well. So my belief is that there was just some massive surge of energy. So that surge of energy could have been from multiple sources and just went through the grid system and just blew everything out. When they came here, this was a destroyed and ruined landscape. And they even use the word ruins to describe things, but they push things far back in the past, like thousands of years or millions of years. And that was so far back, we don't know anything about that. The Earth was terraformed by a highly advanced civilization. And so things we think of as mountains, like the Rocky Mountains and hills, are actually buildings.
Man. Looks like Shem's.
When you look at the city of San Francisco from the early 1870s, and not a soul around, vast emptiness with a fully intact city, and nothing's out of
And,
place.
Shem knows.
People. And so
Shem's
what it
an
looks like
expert
to
on
me is
vast
they went
emptiness.
into a city that was already there.
Empty.
What is this?
Nobody around. So odd. Wait, wouldn't the Tower of Jewels be visible somewhere on this map? Remember, from the World's Fair in San Francisco? It shouldn't be, because that was 37 years after this photograph was
I
snapped.
was just about to say this.
Oh, yes, of course. It looks like it's already there.
Pretty far off.
The World Fairs, it does seem that the purpose of them was to provide us with a new narrative and bring the population to them, just overwhelm them with this fantastical realm that they were now going to internalize and then burn it down in almost like a ritualistic fashion to sear this into the consciousness of the people.
The populating of the Americas was not as authentic, organic as people might have been led to believe. There was a large system of what people have termed orphan trains, incubator baby farms. A lot of these were hubbed in World's Fairs. You had incubator babies at the World's Fairs. Buy an Asian baby, buy a Filipino, buy an African baby.
I think part of it was repopulation. I think part of it was
I didn't stop there, guys. I kept going.
premature children were in these incubators. You see pictures of these, nurses in their uniforms in a room filled with baby incubators, with people paying admission. With our increased awareness today, we've got things like Planned Parenthood and other things going on. There are companies that mail kids. There's a bit on my business where somebody can place an order for a child based on eye color or whatnot, and they get delivered. That's not good. And I think it's the same idea that there's this harvesting of humans going on without our knowledge and awareness, and unspeakable things happening to children that got its start very early on because the same families are behind it.
Ooh.
And you would see this mass migration of orphans.
She said it, not me.
Boats, and you're like, first of all, where are all these fucking orphans coming from? How many orphans were there in the 1800s? Why?
So everybody's learning this thing at this young age, and everybody has to go by these new set of structures and new set of rules. They have to learn this new history that everybody isn't really agreeing with, and then anybody that's not agreeing with, they have to go to the insane asylum. There is the orphan asylums for the children and the insane asylums for the adults. Now all of a sudden, John D. Rockefeller comes out with the Board of Education, and all of the children are sent to a public schooling system to learn their new history. What better way to trick a society than to take their children at a young age and teach them exactly what you want them to know?
If people just realize that if you don't understand the past, you'll repeat it over and over again. And it prevents people from going to progress in the future. And us as a collective species, we have to get to the nitty-gritty of what really happened, what our true potential now is as a collective civilization. Because we can't rely on those people anymore.
Just the subtle hints at like the Jewish people throughout the entire documentary.
How does any of us know? And I would ask my father this all the time. I would say, Dad, how do you know you have a great, 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 great grandpa? How do you know? None of us know. It's the truth, those are things. And, people can sit there and say, you guys are off your rockers talking about this stuff. But, I mean, look who we're accepting the official story from. All I've ever known my whole life is that we don't know how we got here. And we don't know why. We don't know when. If Americans are sitting there one day and say, I don't know how I got here. I don't know why. and I don't know when. Well, then you've been reset.
Part 2,
Pineapple
Jesus,
babies.
Jesus Christ was a Cabbage Patch Kid.
In
Don't
Florida, we're orange
believe
babies.
what we say. Go out in your own communities and do your own research.
The next Mind Unveiled
There's
video.
plenty of buildings that they left for us to examine. Once we can all wake up collectively, then we can come to realize what they have truly done to us.
Hell yeah.
Shout out Hibbler Productions. Check this old world order stuff out. Here you go. A true gem. Firm Fam 2024. Sift through the lies of indoctrination. Ancient civilization laid to wasting. More I scratch at the surface, more I'm facing. Hidden no world, advanced not cavemen. Free energy before the lies of the Masons. Flip the script and change the whole situation. American cities found not created. The tech of the giants, colossal creation. What lies had they hid from us in plain sight? The power of the ethos.
You want to take some calls,
free
Shem?
light. Structures weren't
No.
built by horse and
No.
buggies. Huge slabs
Yeah.
of stone, masterful, not
Yeah.
ugly. Old photos, show marvels, it's been there. Miles from quarries, not anywhere near there. Research the old world right now.
Post the
I
link.
declare we taking back our world from those who feed.
Overall, it's a pretty good documentary. Interesting.
Hell yeah. What's your takeaway, Shem? And hey, we know we're joking. We're a bit loosey goosey. We're both fucking stoned. But all jokes aside, I'm very proud to be a part of that. I think Sean did a great job. And, you know, Shem had some valid criticisms, but even where his criticisms were valid, I think those were still strong points in the film because it didn't commit to any one building. It didn't overly commit. You know, some people got their chance to say, well, I think, you know, they went way from, I think they went to another world. You know, that might not be what I think. Michelle Gibson got to say, you know, her, you know, cataclysm part. That might not be the way I look at it, but I don't feel like we pushed any direction too far. That didn't have good footing. And what do you guys think? You can call in. We'll do a little call-in show here. Might read from the Bible a little bit too, depending on how many people call in. But call in, let us know what you think. But Shem, what do you think, bro?
I'd say what confuses me the most about it is that the points I was making earlier are talking about a specific group of people that was referenced to multiple times throughout the film as if they were the controllers or the people who are basing everything on the economy and stuff like this. So the questions I was asking about things like the doorways or the size of the doorways particularly, or the size of some of these walls and stuff, is if the people in the documentary are saying that, we'll just call them the merchants, are responsible for a lot of
Pharisees. Let's say Pharisees.
Well, if they have documents that talk about these doors needing to be specific heights that fit perfectly into the context of these World's Fairs or other Capitol buildings or state buildings, whatever these ornamental buildings were, that show the same symbols that these people have throughout their entire mythology and history, how is it wrong to speculate that that's possibly what's going on, and why is it wrong to question why people aren't talking about that?
It's not wrong.
Because that's where I was going with it. But I guess I'm just not good at explaining it that well. Because, yeah, I mean, some of these doors, like the way the doors are designed and stuff, and even a lot of these cities, like you can agree that a lot of these cities, they have like these natural springs that flow into places. That's why we have a lot of these old baths that have these like hot water spring baths. It ties into the idea of the mikvah. You need, in order to have a mikvah, it has to be from a spring. It can't be like from the water plant. It has to be from a natural spring, or else it's not valid.
Right. Totally.
So what I'm saying is, like, I guess my takeaway is, after 5 years of looking into this, or longer for some of these people, how come they haven't tried to connect some of these dots in some of these ways? It seems like we're kind of just stuck at this point of like, oh man, it shouldn't be here. And that's about it. Because a lot of these, for example, the Starport cities can be explained too with the same concept I was talking about earlier about the door heights. It's something called an eruv, which allows them to do certain things on the Sabbath. Now, it may not be as nefarious as what it sounds by the way I'm describing it, but a lot of these cities were intentionally designed and started by merchants. Like the entire foundation of cities and World's Fairs come from the idea of having trade there. It's like
Yep, that's true.
The origins of World Fairs is in the Book of Esther, for example. That's some of the
Really?
old
Wait, hang on. The origin of the World's Fairs in the Book of Esther.
I'll show you. It's an old encyclopedia that says it. But the festival that's taking place when this all goes down, where Xerxes or whoever, there's different kings that they say who it is having all the people from around the world come together to this festival. They say that's the inspiration for what World's Fairs were. I'll pull up the
Ryan, what's up, yo? How we doing? How'd you like the documentary? You're live on Old World, Florida.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it was spectacular. Yeah, no, that was. I grew up around Washington D.C. and been itching to go dig a hole out in the National Mall for my whole childhood.
Dig a hole?
Yeah, go find something a little lower in the mud there.
Oh,
but yeah, that was spectacular. I am a big fan of the topic and the work, and I like the putting it into action. I'd really love to find folks that are working on resonators and ethereal collection devices and metallurgy. That's got my head spinning all the time.
Are you in Florida?
No, I'm back in Virginia. I actually work on a certain type of alchemy of sorts. We mix limestone and hemp hurd and make hemp lime like insulative replacement material for natural building structures, and it makes like a crystalline structure within the building material. Makes a very high performing insulation. But no, I'm back in Virginia. I'm working on bringing hemp processing to the East Coast, so working on industrial fiber production.
Oh, yeah. Bring some hemp processing to this coast over here.
Yeah, no, they're growing in Florida. They've been having in the South, they had a harder time finding varieties to grow for the high fiber, because they were able to bring all the European varieties for like Indiana and Kansas and places like that. But the South has tropical, but they're figuring out varieties from Australia and other places. So hemp will be soon. I'd love to, when I got a hemp project, they're building a hemp village down in Tennessee. I'll be back down there, so I'll come visit down in July down in Florida. I'll let you know.
Oh yeah, Ryan. How much of the documentary did you catch?
Just the end for like the last 30 minutes or so. But I've seen a lot of those people speaking, including yourself.
Nice.
And
who were you familiar with already from this?
The lady and Michelle and Sean and one of the other gentlemen that was speaking. Besides, there was a few. I mean, I didn't know the guy from Hawaii and
nice.
A few other folks. And
so you got to meet a whole bunch of new.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
Good researchers.
I'm amazed how many people are interested or discussing. It's such. I feel like this is an oddly not censored topic, or maybe it is, or I don't know. It's
right.
The number of it's got a very eclectic group of people that doesn't feel like conspiratorial type people that are interested in this.
Well said. Well, hey Richie, thanks for calling in, man. You have a blessed night.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your
Have
support.
a good night, man.
Peace.
Peace. Yo, what's up, Richie? You get to catch the documentary? What did you think of it?
Oh, yes, sir. I caught the probably second half, but I guess one observation that comes to mind, and I'm not sure if this was made in the first half, was cathedrals aren't mentioned in the Bible.
Okay.
So right there, I mean, that needs to be explained.
Well, some of the first definite uses for a basilica were a center of commerce or like trade within some of these compounds or fortified cities. That's like the original use for them as like a place of law and everything else. Really strange. And then later on, Basilica now means, pretty sure that's a place that has like an actual artifact from Christianity.
Right. And I don't know if they mentioned either the whole Megatron engineering factor, where a magnetron. Yeah, no, magnetron is a part of a microwave, and inside that housing is the magnetron. And perhaps cathedrals were once energy producing devices in the same way that a magnetron works inside of a microwave. That was a theory that I thought was interesting from an engineering perspective. I don't know if that was talked about in the first half or not, but and then also the fact, also the fact that they're always on high ground, cathedrals, always on I guess streams, always near water. So that could facilitate the transference of energy,
Right.
and connect things.
1 second. Dickie Goodman, you're up next. So hang in there. Richie, where are you calling us out of tonight?
Chicago, Illinois. Hello.
Nice. Is that where you're from?
Yeah, originally, yeah.
Cool. And were you familiar with most of the people in the documentary, or did you get to learn about some new people?
Well, I didn't realize BJ Penn was into this stuff.
Hell yeah.
But I
That was
mean,
cool.
the Lahaina thing is a real, that's a real eye opener.
Right.
I was glad to see you in there. I don't think was the guy who broke this whole thing wide open. Awar, was he in there?
I don't think he was. I think he kind of departed from the whole scene.
Yeah, right.
And I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just he kind of got disillusioned, and I don't blame him, because a lot of the people in this community are wacko losers. Maybe I'm one of them too. But there are a lot of no-gooders just kind of complaining, and it is. I've said it a bunch of times. I find it taking its own type of nihilism, and it's its own type of exercise in futility. It's like, oh, you're just meat-eating monkeys on a rock in the middle of nowhere, right? That's the science paradigm. Well, then the reset mud flood paradigm is you're just ants in a realm that gets reset, and you have no say over it, and you're as disconnected from your past as anyone's ever been. And so I'm not entirely on board with that. And I think he was just kind of throwing his hat in and saying, hey, let's slow down. Not everything's fake. Not everything was made up. Not everyone's an incubator baby. And I find myself thinking the same way sometimes.
Right. I've heard your take on the stuff, and I think it's real good. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is, I know you're anti-mud flood, but I wonder if that's just because you haven't traveled around very much. I mean, I know you just recently got out of Florida, and it just does seem like everywhere I've ever been in the whole world, I mean, there's buried buildings everywhere. So how did that happen? I'm not, it was a mud flood event per se, but what's that soil liquefaction phenomenon that could account for that? I don't know if that was mentioned.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm anti mud flood, but I definitely run into a lot of people who think that mud flood is like the end all be all, and that a mud flood comes every 2 generations, or 136 years or something like that. Some people say that the mud flood like swept over Florida, and that everything in Florida is mud flooded too. So sometimes you run into people who just don't know anything about geology, even just at a common sense level. Florida is very low to the sea level. So there's no mud in Florida, not peninsular
Right.
Florida. It's just limestone, and then what's sitting on top of the limestone. So in places like the Midwest, Heartland America, I'm with you. I talk about mud flood a good amount myself, but when I talk about mud flooders, you see some of these people with like usernames like Mud Flood Girl 69, or Mud Flood Mud Flood Missy, Mud Flaps McGee, whatever. But some people make it their whole identity and the whole answer to what's wrong with the world, just getting mud flooded over and over. So I'm not anti-mud flood, but I minimize the importance of it, especially in Florida.
Yeah, for sure. Because you make the good point about everything Flagler was involved with and those buildings. And that's all seems to be pretty well documented, much harder to refute. Like those characters are less mysterious than some of the quote unquote architects that get credit for a lot of the other structures that we see. Just when you travel around the world, there's just all these buildings looking the same, just spectacular points of comparison. Take like Petropolis in Brazil outside of Rio. Just absolutely magnificent. And a lot of buildings that are still in Rio. And then if you look at the buildings that were in Rio, absolutely spectacular. And, make sense of that. And then you find similar structures in Asia. In Thailand, you've got the King's Palace over there. I remember seeing that and other places. So, yeah, that point was pretty well made.
Well, Richie, thanks for calling in tonight, man.
You bet.
We appreciate you watching.
Hey, one last thing I wanted to say is I don't know if there was any mention of like the urban planning involved in these cities, but that's something I want to talk to you about maybe on another time. So
we're gonna be going live more often.
Are you? Cool.
Call in and we'll get you in.
Good deal. All right, guys.
Thanks,
cheers.
Richie. You have a good night, man.
See ya.
Dickie Goodman, what's up?
Longo, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What did you think of the film?
I think it's excellent, and I'm glad there was a lot of you in it, because what you reminded me of is my teenage years in Florida, Fort Myers, Sanibel Island, Miami Beach, and there were these local late night TV show hosts, and they'd show like monster movies or something, but they would come in in between and talk, and that's what you remind me of that sort of I don't know, it was sort of like the good old days of local TV. It wasn't like this mass media kind of thing. It was pretty cool. But
that's high praise, Dickie Goodman. Arlen Robbins, you're next in line, so hang in there, buddy, or Missy. Arlen.
And the other thing
Dickie.
is the Giants, right? Your whole thing with the Giants, I witnessed that. I was I played football in high school in Fort Myers, and we went to the state playoffs, and it was during the time of Sanders and all of that, and we went there, and the opening game of the state playoffs, we saw the team for the Seminoles, and they were Giants, and it was such a menacing kind of first appearance that the coach immediately said, all first string, all just the starting players were going to play that whole game. And they were massacred. They opened the game by literally charging at the bench and throwing a spear into our bench. Like it could have killed somebody. They literally threw a spear at the bench. And, it stuck in. It was the real thing, And at the end of the game, they they were just annihilated, bloodied, and dirtied, and beaten, and it was the quietest bus ride, you know, whatever that 2 hour ride, whatever it was back, it was silent. But they were giants. That's all I could tell you.
Wow.
And but the last thing I would say is I just want everybody to know that and I don't know how Shem. I'm curious to get Shem's take on this.
Oh yeah.
But we've got to realize that the average Jewish person, or even the average Mason, right? Someone in the Masons have no idea about this higher Illuminati kind of thing, right? So when at every single YouTube show now is like, oh, the Jews this or the Masons that. Now I'm not in the Masons, okay? But
Okay, you're a Jewish Freemason. We get it. Okay.
The average
I'm just kidding.
isn't part of this reptilian thing. Maybe Shem can help me out here, but it's true. I'm just telling you, it's true. The average person. So when you say this, when we make these blanket giant statements about a whole grouping of people, you've got to understand that maybe there's some bad guys or whatever amongst them that really are, these top bad guys.
Yeah, we kind of talked.
It's just average person,
We kind of talked about this during the last couple of Bible studies too. So yeah, I'm kind of on the same page with you when it comes to that. I do believe that if there is a group of people in control, they do move from group to group to kind of like cover their tracks. Maybe they have to set it up where they can go to another group again if they need to, depending on how far back you want to say that this has been happening. But one thing you can do is you can identify certain things in each era of history with the most prominent thing, whether it be the Renaissance or the Industrial Revolution or modern buildings, old, like the Jewish religion, everything. You can find the same symbols within all of these things. You can find the same. So that's kind of how you can identify that there is some sort of theme carried out through all of this.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
The buildings that we were talking about earlier too.
I just think when we make the videos and everything, we should sort of just, I don't know, have some kind of little. It's just like if you were watching videos of the looting or riots during 2020, if you made a blanket statement about, oh, it's those people again or whatever, that's not really fair because it's not representative of all the people. The angry mob.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King said one day, I had a dream. That's right. Just kidding.
But
no. The reason, one of the reasons why it's not censored, because you notice that we can talk about this stuff openly right now, it's probably because they want people to be thinking that it is certain groups of people doing these types of things. However, I mean, there is a lot of evidence that does. You have to look at it, but from both sides. But I will say that if you listen to like modern Jewish speakers, they will openly admit to being secular and not being religious at all. They'll say a majority of Jewish people are atheists. So what does that mean?
All I know is my mother taught me both. My mother sent me when I was a kid. My mother sent me to yeshiva, and they taught Hebrew, and how specifically to read the Torah, to read the Old Testament in Hebrew, and that was it. They weren't teaching these weird, scary mystery conspiracy ones. They weren't teaching anything about Talmuds or Kabbalahs or any of that crap. There was no.
You're
they weren't
too young,
sacrificing any animals or going through any tunnels. I'm telling you the truth. I went to one of the biggest, yeshivas in Brooklyn, and then my mom taught me about Jesus. So I got the opportunity to argue that with my retired Jewish lawyer grandfather, that Jesus was the Son of God, and he said, "Prove it," because he was a lawyer and everything. Prove Jesus is the Son of God. I said, well, my mommy told me. And that was it. I won my first case that way.
Have you ever heard of Uriel DaCosta?
No.
He was a Jewish guy who he was a converso, and basically he found out he was Jewish and he had been studying like the Bible and everything. So he was very excited about this. So he was going to revert to Judaism, and because he read the Bible, he read the Old Testament, he was like, this is exactly what reality is supposed to be, just based on the books alone. So what happened was he ended up being, I'm just going to do the very short version of this. He ended up going to the Jewish community and realizing this is not Judaism. What is happening here? So he got exiled multiple times. They ended up lashing him and walking over him, making him strip naked and stuff like that. Blah blah blah. He ended up committing suicide. But this is like a good example of what you're describing here, is that the religion at some point has been hijacked by someone to change it completely from what it's supposed to be. It's the oral rabbinical tradition, which you find the oral tradition throughout multiple religions in all of history. But
Right. Well said, Shem. Dickie Goodman, all are welcome here. You know, we may be a little prickly sometimes. We may, be critical of some, but we're critical of everyone. And the number one thing that we're against, the only thing that we hate, are double standards. So everyone gets the same criticism. And if anyone's, like I always say, anyone of any religion, if they're doing blood sacrifice, they're my enemy. I'm opposed to that.
Yeah,
My
the
God's
only
opposed to that.
sacrifice I want are blood oranges. So send me a bush.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Love that.
Thank
but
you.
Dickie Goodman, where are you calling us from tonight?
Philadelphia.
Shall yeah.
Yeah, I wish I was back in Florida though.
Yeah. Well, hey, my dad's side of the family's from Philly. Not a bad place. All right, Dickie Goodman, thanks for calling in.
Thank
you.
you.
Good points. Thanks for the support. You have a good night.
Have a good night, man.
Arlen Robbins, what's up? What did you think of Old World Order?
Well, brother, I didn't catch all of the documentary at first. I'll have to go back and rewatch all that.
That's okay.
Caught you guys at the last part of it, but it seemed very interesting. A couple of the fellas like Martin Ledke, Mind Unveiled, I was familiar with some of them, so I'll be interested in checking that video out for sure.
Nice. Where are you calling us from tonight?
From Jacksonville, Florida, bro.
Shall ya? Oh,
Yeah.
Arlen from the meetup. I remember.
Yeah, brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Or is your you had a child on the way?
Yeah, actually, he's 3 weeks tomorrow, bro. Glad
Dude.
you to remember.
Very good, man.
Very
Very happy to hear.
Good. Thank you, bro. Thank you. Well, my call-in was for Shem tonight. I was curious about his views on the connections between Tartaria and the millennial kingdom of Christ.
So that whole concept of the millennial kingdom of Christ, it's really confusing because the source that a lot of people give for that is Anatoly Fomenko, but in reality, it's from the publisher's note at the very beginning of the first volume of the book, which isn't even written by Fomenko. It's written by the publisher. I've read probably 90% of those books, and I don't remember really hearing about that in relation to Tartaria at all. So I don't really know. I don't know where it comes from. Is there some other question that I'm not answering related to it, or is that pretty much what you're wondering?
I was just interested in you've done a lot of book work. I was just interested in it. If you came across anything that really hones in on that connection. I've seen a lot of people put some of their opinions out there that seem kind of convincing, being that the architecture was so grandesque, beautiful. It looks like a place that, a savior might want to come back to in a way. So
1 sec, Ben,
Yeah.
You're up next, buddy. Hang in there.
So it was just quite cool to hear that potential connection. It, still aligns prophetically in a sense with the book or the Bible, I mean. So I was just kind of curious if you came across anything in your deep dives on Tartaria.
I haven't come across anything that talks about a millennial reign of Christ, unfortunately, because it does sound nice. Yeah, I wish I did. But if you have anything, feel free to hit me up on Instagram. I'll definitely check it out.
Oh, or the millennial reign of Christ that's referenced in the book of Revelation, Bible, the 1,000 years of his return to earth.
Well, yeah, I guess what I'm talking about is if you're talking, like, if there's any things that talk about it being like having to do with the buildings and everything else like that.
I mean, I've come across, I might have to shoot some stuff over to you, see what you can come up with, maybe.
sounds interesting to me.
Well,
So far, though, nothing really.
mine was pretty brief. I just wanted to touch in on that with Shim, see if he had anything that might have piqued my interest that I hadn't came across already. But coming up short, Shim. Come on, man. Do some
Sorry.
night.
Sorry, man.
Thought you were gonna have a load for me tonight, man.
I could, I mean, I don't know. Now we could talk about the buildings and stuff. That's kind of what I was going to be getting into at the beginning of this, anyways. But yeah, I don't know.
Any notes that you have that are worth sharing on that Tartarian aspect? Any relation that you could say it's in to the Bible or any kind of form of the early Judaism or anything like that?
It just depends on where you're coming from with it, because I'm not sure.
I guess
Tartaria to me is
Go
a
ahead.
very confusing topic, because it's like I don't believe Tartaria has ever actually fallen. I think that the same people who are responsible for Tartaria are the ones that are doing everything that's causing the problems in the world right now. And the reason that they want you to think that it fell is because it never actually fell.
Makes sense. I can get behind that idea. I mean, that's a
So
total.
I think the debate comes down to the mysteries being available to everyone or being practiced publicly versus being for initiates only. I think some of these old buildings were intentionally decorated with these themes from this religion that you find all throughout history, because there was a certain time period where maybe either only a certain group of people were enjoying them, or they didn't care about this knowledge being shared publicly. I don't know. I mean, there's so much to it, man. Like, if you can be a little bit more specific, I've done a lot.
Tartaria has got so much tied into it: the free energy, the religion, the repopulation, the mud flood. There's so much that's tied into this idea. That's why the work you guys do. I told Longo when I met him. I mean, y'all are doing top tier work out here, figuring out this stuff for the rest of us out here. I appreciate it. You guys keep good work. I've been on the channel for quite some time. I recently come into your videos, Shim, seeing you with Longo, so I've just been following y'all. Y'all are doing great, man. Keep it up.
Appreciate it, man.
Well,
I did like a interview with Juan from 101 Podcast recently, and we kind of go into some of that stuff on there. So if you haven't seen that, maybe you might find it interesting.
I'll have to check it out. I'm doing some catching up. Longo's been putting out some heat lately, so I'm catching in on what I.
Oh shit. Yeah, fit in some Tartarian truth, maybe, when you're on the toilet or something.
Or never.
Y'all are top tier, man. Y'all keep it up, dude.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Arlen. Hey, God bless, man. Good luck with the family.
Thank you. I hope to run into you again soon, bro.
Proud of you, dude. Thanks for coming to the Jacksonville meetup, the Treaty Oak. Arlen had a fucking great time with us at the Treaty Oak in Jacksonville, so make sure you guys don't miss out on our full moon meetups.
Full meetups. Those are so cool. He meeting with Longo, the crowd that shows up, an awesome group of people. Do your best to make a stop to at least one if you can, if you're an Advent follower like I am.
Shut up.
All right,
Thanks, Arlen.
Good one.
You have a good night, man.
See you later.
Peace. Yo, Ben, what's up? What do we think about Old World Order?
Honestly, I didn't catch the documentary tonight, but I'm gonna catch up. But I just jumped onto YouTube and saw you guys alive, and thought I'd give it a shot and jump in. But I moved out here to Florida about 6 years ago, and just started out in St. Augustine, and got into your stuff about a month ago, and it's just changed my perspective on everything around me here. So I just wanted to show some love and appreciation for what you guys are doing. It's good stuff, and it's blowing my mind. So
Ancient city, mate.
I know, right? Yeah, it's wild. It's a very strange place.
Throw another shrimp on the barbecue. You're in the homeland of barbecue.
I know, right? Yeah.
You're Australia?
Yeah, originally. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not New Zealand.
So not New Zealand. Good call. Yeah, it's very close.
You're in Aussie.
Yeah, but I shoot a lot of video, like weddings and stuff, and so I actually go to a lot of the locations that you've done videos on and kind of get behind the scenes and kind of, you know, like the Jekyll Island President Club and a lot of the different venues. So,
So how long
I've
you
been to all these places.
So how long you been filming porn? Just kidding.
All right,
Just
you
kidding.
caught
Can I
me.
borrow
You
your
caught me
drone?
Hey, yeah, hit me up.
You got a
Yeah,
drone?
I got a lot of drone footage from around here, so yeah, sure, I could share some stuff as well if you need anything. But yeah, and I think I might have driven by a saxostone the other day out here, so I'm gonna try and get a little closer look for you. Like someone had one out the front of their yard. So have you heard of them anywhere else in Florida other than?
Well, you said you're in St. Augustine. You've been.
Mm-hmm.
You moved to St. Augustine and you're still there?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a bunch over there. New Smyrna, Ormond Beach, St. Augustine. That's a big hotspot. The Coquina
Okay.
Rock over there. That's what a lot of them are made out of. And
Yeah, okay.
yeah, Ormond Beach has some of the most I've ever seen in one
Okay.
spot. Yeah,
Right.
Tampa Bay has.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay area is the next hotspot, number one hotspot.
Okay. All right, so it's not unusual to see them around other places.
Oh, they're all
Okay.
over. Oh yeah.
Hmm. Cool.
That's
cool.
So hey, you're you like Florida?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's the Garden of Eden.
Nice.
Yeah.
Feels that
Yeah,
way.
hey, I mean, coming from Australia, like it just feels different as well. Like, like the sun will just like fry you, and you'll feel, you know, like dry and gross at the end of the day. But I mean, here I can be out in the sun, and I come home and my skin's glowing. Got to get out here.
Right.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, it's good.
Invigorating.
But just wanted to show some appreciation and thank you guys for what you're doing, and yeah, keep it up. Look forward to everything you do.
Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it, man.
Welcome to America. Appreciate you.
Well, welcome to the
Cheers,
greatest country there's ever been. The greatest
I believe
state
it.
in the greatest country.
It's
Thank you,
good.
Ben.
Yeah,
Appreciate
sure.
it, man. You're going to be our last caller here. We're going to wrap it up.
Cool.
And thanks, Ben. You have a good night, man.
Yeah, you too.
Later.
Shem, guys, go check him out. Tartarian Truth channel. You know where to find him. I guess I'll just promote my stuff real quick. We've got should have known backstage here to help me. That's my bad. But you can go to dancing. Here, we'll just go through it together. Gonna make a new tab. Okay, guys, if you want to support the Old World Florida channel, okay, you can go, you know, you can tip whatever, you can join our Patreon that we're going to bring up. Basically, the Patreon is Old World Florida. Easy peasy. Go sign up to that. Old World Florida on Patreon. If you want to see us uncensored, if you want to see it free from ads. And then next in line, you're going to want to go to themoringaman.com. Themoringaman.com. The Moringa Man, this is where you can buy moringa. It's one ingredient. This is a leaf, raw organic moringa powder. Let's see what it says. It's got 7 times the vitamin C as oranges. Uh-oh. Talking shit on oranges? Not cool. 4 times the beta carotene in carrots. 3 times the iron in spinach. 4 times the calcium in milk. 2 times the protein in milk. 3 times the potassium in bananas. And more fiber than oats. Okay, this is moringa. This is just a food. You know, the same could be said about the leaf. Grows all across South Florida here. You can pull it off the trees in these neighborhoods right next to where I'm at right now. And this stuff's super good for you. It'll get you jacked if you're working out. It's like a meal replacement. It's been called the cure to world hunger. And some people call it the tree of life. So you can buy this stuff. The code for Moringa Man is Old World Florida. So when you're checking out, use a code Old World Florida, spelt out in full. And then, you know, maybe you don't want the moringa. Oh, you can buy plants, capsules, or the powder. Then what else we got? If you don't want that stuff, you can go to dancingelephant.shop to get books, crystals. We've got lots of good books on here. Guys, you want to learn? Recommended reading list right here. We're adding books to this every day. Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. You can get that right here. Use the code OWF. That's it. OWF. You can get Astrology, A Cosmic Science. This is one when people come in here asking to learn about astrology. This is like the #1 book I recommend to people. The previous owner of this bookstore, this is the book that he would recommend to. Astrology, A Cosmic Science. You can buy these all off our website. Lots of cool stuff. And use the code OWF. You'll get 10% off. Some of these books are crazy expensive. And if you use the code 10% off, that can be like $20 off. It's a $200 book, $200 tarot deck. You make a $500 order, 10% off. That's a lot of money. So, yeah, go to the Dancing Elephant. You want to educate yourself, get a lot of these books, crystals at your disposal, guys. And remember to use the code OWF. Okay. Next, we're going to go to sipblue.com. SipBlue. And your SipBlue, you're also going to use the code OWF. This is another product with one ingredient, just one ingredient. It's butterfly pea flower tea. Also a superfood. Purifies the blood, improves circulation, activates dormant Atlantean, blue-blooded, copper-blooded DNA. Oh yeah, guys. Inject a little Misty Mountain Gatorade into your veins. So you use the code OWF on this. This stuff's really good for you too. Shilajit. Look up Shilajit. Don't have anything prepped on that right now, but that's available to you on sipblue.com. SipBlue, my girlfriend uses. Has been using a lot. I like it. My assistant, Brandon, really likes it. So the stuff's super good for you. Buy some SipBlue. Code OWF. You'll save a little money. You'll help me make a little money. And yeah, enjoy. What else we got?
24/7 support.
That's it. Yeah, Patreon, sipblue.com, dancingelephant.shop, themoringaman.com. That's how you can support me. Support Old World Florida. And easy peasy. Yeah, we saved the promotions for the end of the show because we've got some ungrateful hags who like to complain about Dr. Longo actually making a buck. Some people would like Dr. Longo. Some people would like me and people like me to just be dirt poor forever.
Sickening.
And not make a cent from this.
You got to read Matthew, bro. That's what we should have been doing tonight, anyways, the New Testament. Then you wouldn't be thinking about money anymore.
Right. Thanks, Shem. Yeah, Shem, why don't you just quit your day job?
Okay.
God provides all.
I took responsibilities, but as soon as I was over,
Nobody
I was
needs
allowed to be
to.
homeless.
Right. All in good fun. So guys, you can get this stuff, and if you don't like me, when the channel started, things were easy. Things were didn't have to worry so much. Now it's like YouTube's breathing down my neck on every single post. Having to dispute a lot of stuff at risk of demonetization. And I was demonetized for a long, long time, for months and months. The videos kept coming. So it's not going to take us out of the fight if they go that far, but the more support I'm getting outside of YouTube just helps me in the long run, makes it easier. Don't have to cater to YouTube standards. So, yep, that's why we're supporting stuff. And these are products that I would use and can shamelessly shill, can shamelessly promote. If you came into the store, you'd find them. We sell them in the store right here too. These are things I'd sell to anyone, give to a friend. So, yeah, if we've got any ungrateful hags who don't like it when we shill some legit shillagit, you can take a hike, lady. Take a hike. And you're welcome. I remember people on the last video, people will stay to the end of the video, stay till the end of our big long live stream, soaked in all the content. And then what do they have to say at the end? I can't believe Dr. Longo's changed so much. He's actually promoting products at the end. he's sold out to. Yeah. Okay. Well,
I wish I could push the button on my StreamYard and play the clip from Archaics. It's important to know what's happening. It's called being baited.
Right.
You got baited.
Whatever.
Who
It
cares
is
if it's
admittedly, it is a total insecurity of mine to come across as a money grubber, fucking begging bitch. Hell no. But, it's what I gotta do.
At least it's not League of Legends or whatever that cell phone game is.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have to lie about playing it and stuff.
No, these products are great. And actually, you guys have been buying so much that it's been helping a lot. So thank you very much for everyone who's been buying Sip Blue, Moringa Man. The support has been great. You definitely make it easier on me to promote this stuff by actually buying it. So thank you. Definitely don't have to beg too much. I appreciate that. And these things are really good for you too. So I know you're benefiting from them. So thank you guys. And we like to have fun here. So if we pissed anyone off tonight, fucking blow me. Who cares?
Did you hit the
Right.
super chats? Or was there any other super chats that you need to go through or anything?
Okay, Shem. We'll see if any of them said your name. Longo, be nice to Shemdrich. Dickie Goodman, he called in. Thanks for the $1.99. Aster, thanks for the $10. Comments on the Utah Capitol being built start to finish with photos. I sent the link to all the photos in the chat. Built by Richard Kletting with a visible steam shovel. Yeah, I don't know. That's out of my wheelhouse.
I've seen some of those photos, and yeah, it's just evidence that there were technologies that aren't commonly talked about that could have helped with some of the construction with these.
Thank you, Aster. Thanks for the $10. Wish I could give you more. 6 Hour, thanks for the $9.99. Yo, enjoy that super sticker, bro. We're like bonded for life now. You buy a super sticker, you're good as family to me. Okay. Super sticker, you can turn that thing in at my wedding and get a front row seat.
I forget what Six said earlier, but it was hilarious. I think it was the Michelle Gibson thing, but I'm not sure.
Super stick 'em up, yo. All right, guys. We got some more actually. Dickie Goodman, another 199. Them shekels. Thanks, bro. Van Norris with a 13 bucks. Never solve all these mysteries, but BS is ubiquitous. Great vid, dudes. Thanks, Van Norris. Appreciate the support. Matt Valente, thanks for the $5. Hey, Longo, any good pipe organs near Jupiter, West Palm Beach, Martin, or Port St. Lucie? August? Which church has the best pipe organ around? St. Edward's? Bethesda? Bethesda by the sea, Palm Beach Island. That's where Trump goes. Cool church. Very cool place. We've got some old world Florida supporters who work there too. So, yo. Rock and Roller, thanks for the $9.99. What do you think about old maps showing castles? Could that be old world? And there was a flood, or were they just identifying a major city? Longo and Shem are legends. Let's go. Rocket. Tangerine. Shall ya? Thanks, Rock and Roller. Shem, what do you think? You've talked about that. You've done some map videos, right? Looking at like
Not
major.
really, but I would definitely say the map showing castles, probably talking about cities being in those locations, depending on the map. You could probably correlate it with trade routes that went through that area at that time or something like that to figure out what was kind of going on, depending on what year it was. And why they're not there anymore. We talked about this. Well, I guess the documentary talked about this a little bit. The intentional destruction of cities. There are multiple reasons why that could be. Specifically in the context of the 1800s in America. Think about what was taking place. Basically the formation of America. The Civil War just happened. Stuff like that. Encouraging people to move to the big city for a new life, sell their farmland, burn down the city. Now you're dependent on the government.
So it's
very basic, simple. Yeah.
Well, all right, y'all. That'll do it for us tonight. Thank you, guys. Go join the Patreon. Hit sipblue.com, dancingelephant.shop, themeringaman.com, and I think that's it. Yeah, whatever. We do have a quick little word from our sponsor here. Thank you, Tanner by the Sea, for the $4.99. Congratulations, dude. That was really awesome. Really, really impressed. Thanks, Tanner. Appreciate it. Oh, shit. Crystal Vintage with the $19.99. Fucking super sticker. Hell yeah. Don't smoke that all at once. Convert that super sticker to Bitcoin instantly.
Big up.
Thank you, Crystal Vintage. Appreciate it. Catch you guys next time.
Have a good night, everyone. Appreciate you having me, Longo.
You're welcome. And all right, guys.
Shout out to the chat. Peace
Quick
out.
word from one of our sponsors here at the end. Peace, yo.
What it feels like to sip blue.
Have a good night, everyone. You guys hear that? You hear that, Jeff? Nice.
Reactivate Burgundian DNA with sip blue. The ancient gods were blue and so is their blood. Return your blood to blue by drinking Sip Blue, the flower of life. Sip Blue is a tea made from a single ingredient, butterfly pea flower. by SipBlue with promo code OWF for 10% off at SipBlue.com. SipBlue is a Florida-owned business.